Hello, good afternoon, esteemed guests, and to those connecting virtually, good morning, afternoon, and evening, from wherever in the world you are joining us from. Welcome to the Accelerate for Impact Platform's flagship event on this 15th of October 2024, Navigating Risk and Reward in Agrifood-tech Innovation, the Power of Multilateralism. My name is Megan Steele. I'm a junior expert in innovation ecosystem engagement, and I will be emceeing today's event. This event is convened by the CGIAR Accelerate for Impact platform under the patronage of the Italian Ministry of Foreign Affairs and International Cooperation, and hosted in Rome at the Alliance of Bioversity International in CEST. Today, we welcome esteemed speakers and attendees, both in person and online, to highlight how international cooperation and multilateral frameworks can play a critical role in mitigating investor hesitancy and risks in the agri-food-tech innovation development and deployment. Throughout the event, we will feature interventions from leaders across science, policy, international development, private sector, and many organizations taking action toward multilateral initiatives for agri-food technology transfer. To inaugurate today's event and to introduce our fellow opening speakers, I am pleased to welcome esteemed journalist Massimo Zarini, Editor-in-Chief of Info Africa and Africa AFI.
Thank you, Megan. Hello, good afternoon, and thanks everybody for being here. I want also to thank the organizer for inviting me. I think that the themes that we are going discussing today are very, very relevant. You know, I was looking at some pictures before coming here about the flooding in the Sahara Desert between yesterday and today. And if we talk about agri-food system, agriculture, we all know that we have in front such incredible challenges. If you put together, you know, demography trends in some area of this world, I'm thinking about Africa, the climate change effects all over the world, and also the need for sustainable food systems, because we have seen the price of unsustainable food production. I think we all agree that these are incredible challenges, but we also have, and this is the good news, incredible opportunities to address these challenges coming from innovation, technology. And we have seen, I think all of you have seen the images of the SpaceX arriving back to land and taken from this big robot arm that took it in control. And it's something really unbelievable. But we are seeing that a lot of innovation and technology is driven by the market. And I think this can be a problem. Because if you put all the dots together of the challenges and of the opportunities, we cannot let all the private capital alone to work on innovation in this sector. And the other element I would like to underline, when I will stop speaking, is about the other theme that is in our work today, the multilateral cooperation. I think we all have to look very frankly to what's happening in the world. We have challenges that needs a multilateral approach and multilateral answer, but we are witnessing the growing of bilateral relations. Just think about Africa, that is the area that I cover most. We have seen in Italy, Piano Mattei experimented, no? That it's champion of a new bilateral season between Italy and the African continent. But 1 week ago, Denmark presented a strategy that is quite similar. And 2 months after Italy, Swiss presented a similar approach. And then we have the Russia summit, Russia-Africa, Japan-Africa, Korea-Africa, US-Africa. So, probably multilateralism can have some limit, and we have to think about that. But I'm sure that is the best answer to some of the challenges in this sector specifically. Just I will stop talking because I can go on talking for hours, but we have time to respect. So it's a great pleasure. I give the floor and the podium to Juan Lucas Restrepo, Director General of the Alliance of Bioversity International and CGIAR.
My colleagues, I'm going to pull this so as to protect my head. All right, no, great to see this room full of people, and I understand that the virtual room is also filling up quickly. Thank you, Massimo, Ayerson, Hani, and all of you guests to this important conversation. And I agree with you that we need to keep our interventions short, because most of us, including me, are here to learn and to see these amazing innovations, challenges, and all of the testing our organizations are doing to make sure that new technologies, new innovations can better serve societal needs and reach end users and the ground. So you mentioned the Massimo food systems, and the beauty about food systems is that it makes it very easy for all of society, as we all need a plate of food at least once a day, hopefully, and for some more times, to realize that without food we basically would not be here, and that the way food is produced and the way food has been produced has been in the culprit and has generated a lot of the challenges society is missing, but also that food system innovation is in many ways a big chunk, a big part of the solution in terms of meeting our goals. I'm traveling next week to the convention on biodiversity in Colombia, but it would be the case of climate or desertification. Food is the connector, or is one of the important connectors, because the way we produce food changes or can change dramatically, hopefully in the positive way, what happens with biodiversity, what happens with climate change, etc. But our challenge is that sometimes we feel that we got lots of solutions that are there. I get criticized because we talk about solutions being in shelves, these kind of things. But solutions that may be fantastic face operational risks, financial risks that we need to tackle in order to allow those solutions to be on the ground and to have the corresponding rewards. And this is why this conversation today is about risks and rewards. Let's understand how we reach and how we bring together in innovative ways those solutions that we are generating from our science as CG and also Alliance, many other organizations, into the ground through entrepreneurship and many other ways. So this is why we're talking about risk, rewards, and multilateralism, which is what brings us together. Not any institution, not the public sector, the private sector, the international organizations, multilateral platforms can get this accomplished without doing it together. And this is basically what's bringing us together to pick up our brains jointly and understand what we can do, how we can do things better in order to make sure we meet society's needs and the planetary needs simultaneously. So we will be sharing some of our experience. I'm not going to talk about it because I see that we have some of our flagships already covered this afternoon. Ana Maria, welcome back home. Great to see you. As any other of you, I'm going to be here just absorbing, learning, and enjoying what is designed to be a fantastic afternoon of learning and commitment for all of us. Thanks a lot, and I think Ayason, over to you.
Thank you very much. I think we have Ayason Kennedy connected with us. Ayason, are you here with us?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you, Ayason. Let me introduce you. Ayason Kennedy is a policy officer of rural development for the African Union Commission. Good afternoon, Ayason. The floor is yours.
Thank you so much. Colleagues and everyone on this call. I'm here representing the Director for Agriculture and Rural Development of the African Union Commission in this inaugural address that has been extended to us at the African Union Commission, and I'm going to intervene through his intervention verbally, as he has already given to me, and then I will tweak it verbatim from word to word. Distinguished guests, esteemed colleagues, and honored delegates, it's with great pleasure and profound responsibility and sense of honor that I welcome you to this pivotal event where we shall be focusing on navigating the risk and the rewards in agri-food system and innovation through the power of multilateralism. Today we gather to explore how science, technology, and innovation can easily be integrated into our global food systems and the crucial role that multilateral corporations play in this endeavor. The African Union Commission has long recognized the transformative potential of STI in addressing the multifaceted challenges that faces our agri-food system. As we navigate these challenges, a lot of complexity has come up, including climate change, food security, economic development, and the African Union Commission becomes more and ever critical in fostering collaboration and driving impactful initiatives on the continent. The African Union Commission plays a very big role in advocating for policies that promote science, technology, and innovation, integrating it across all our member states. We do harmonize regulations, we do standards, we do ensure a cohesive approach that maximizes the benefits of technology advancement in scientific research. For example, the AUC efforts in standardizing biotechnology regulation has paved the way for the adoption of drought-resistant varieties across the continent using the frameworks that the African Union Commission developed. Equally, there are various programs across the continent, especially in terms of providing capacity building for our member states, facilitating knowledge exchange, and as well as providing them with trainings and opportunities that empowers our member states in terms of innovation, science, and technology, especially the agri-food system. The African Union Commission serves as a bridge that connects the governments, research institutions, private sectors, entities, and as well as international organizations in fostering this crucial innovation. We also do sustainably make it that sustainability is in the heart of the agenda of the African Union Commission, and that's why we do integrate STI in our agri-food system by preserving our natural resources. We also dedicate enough of our resources in terms of human resource to research, science, and technology. As we embark on this journey, let us affirm our commitment to this multilateral cooperation. The challenges that we face are global in nature and requires all of us. We have cooperated with CGIAR, we have cooperated with many of the organizations around the world in leveraging the strengths that our expertise are diverse and our stakeholders could create a robust and resilient food systems that meets the needs of the growing population in Africa. We would like to say that we extend our gratitude to all those who have dedicated their time to this webinar, and the African Union Commission wishes to listen to all that has been presented and hope that the presentation will be reachful and we shall be able to take comments from the presentation to build a brighter future for sustainable food system for all, especially in Africa. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Ayazon. And I will invite to the podium Hani Hayad, that is the CEO of the Innovation Support Fund of the Ministry of Higher Education and Scientific Research of Egypt. Hani, please, the floor is yours.
Have a great evening, all. I would like to thank you, CGIAR, for the great invitation, and thank you, Manza, for us to being here, sharing what the intention and the appetite of the Innovation Support Fund of Egypt and its role on supporting innovators and gifted people to bring in life their innovation and their ideas and their researchers to be commercialized, and how it could be ventures and we could capitalizing on with exploring, let's say, a new out of borders techniques, out of the borders and regulations, how we could collaborate with the industry, working together to bring a real solution fitting the industrial needs and the better future. So what we could find in the innovations to simplify this perfect title, it's innovation, entrepreneurship together that could bring new startups working in the market, new ventures. And that's our mandate in the Innovation Support Fund, supporting the innovation that leads to be and startups and ventures. In addition to finding a ways, maybe let's say it's not out of the box, but because maybe it's not being utilized that much in our country, but we could find in Egypt maybe more than 38,000 IBs already registered. But when we asking about the commercialization part of such patents, we could find that less than 1% of these IBs is already commercialized. So the problem here, it's not maybe the matter of transforming such patents or researchers to be commercialized, but sometimes the researchers themselves not seeking for commercializing their products, commercializing their inventions. So we are trying, maybe we have a previous discussion with Menza yesterday about how to express or how to improve the participation of science parks in Egypt, especially in the agri-tech sector, and how we could work closely with the researcher to do, we can do the business part of the research, even exploring the opportunities to work in, or doing the business part of the venture itself, and he will contribute by his research, and he will do the R&D, and we will do the business sides. And we cannot do it alone. We have to do it with a multinational collaboration, and I think our collaboration with CGIAR and the support of the Italian government to imposing and showing the express and how it's good, the practice that already developed in Egypt in the domain of the agriculture or the agri-tech and many other sectors that we could discuss it on later. I think that will be the right fit solution for such bringing technologies and bringing innovation from, let's say, from the boxes up to the markets, and that's what's needed. and actually not only bringing innovation and researchers from the Egyptian researchers to become in the market, but bringing innovations and technologies from all over the world to be in the Egyptian market and taking from the Egyptian markets innovations and to the globe. So I'm very blessed to be here today and expressing our gratitude and our minister gratitude to be in a great collaboration with CGIAR and all the other entities. Thank you.
Thank you, Hani. Thank you to all of you. I was just writing down some of the words that the three of you have used, and connection, together, collaboration. But I will follow the example of Director Restrepo, and as he said, I'm going to sit and listen because we have a crowded program of very, very interesting themes. So I will give the floor to the next session. You will introduce? Okay, thank you. Thank you to all of you.
Thank you once again to our inaugurators for their words on integrating science, technology, and innovation into global agri-food systems through multilateral cooperation. Now, I welcome founder and managing director of Brighter Bridges, Dario Giuliani, for insight into the trends driving the growth of Agrifood-tech and how international cooperation may be the key to unlock further capital.
Thanks. Hello everyone, this is Dario. Thanks John Piero for having me. This is the first time I'm in Rome for a speech. Though I'm from Milan with family in Rome. I've been here many times. So the reason why I'm here, I run a company called Brighter Bridges, and we usually speak about the state of the market across emerging markets. We have actually just we've actually just released, is it possible to do full? So we actually just released a report this week about the state of agriculture and technology in Africa. So you're basically getting a preview of new data. What am I talking about here today? Trends in the agri-food-tech ecosystem and what areas are driving growth, and also what is the opportunity for international cooperation. I can see a room full of different types of stakeholders, so I guess it's going to be an interesting conversation. I'm not sure. Oh yeah, cool. So that second page shows us the type of work that the Brighter has done and the clients and partners that we have been working with in the agri and food space. And so it gives you an idea of the fact that we work across public and private sector a lot, and we produce data and advise stakeholders worldwide, especially those working in Africa, but we've been recently expanding to emerging markets, actually with our first hire in Colombia last week. So, State of Agtech Investment Report. This is actually an initiative that has been started by the Gates Foundation, and I see some of you in the room. Brighter and Mercicor Agrifin have been leading the effort, and effectively, so Brighter, what we do is, for those of you who are familiar with a company called PitchBook or even Bloomberg, we do a lot of corporate data across emerging markets. And with the Gates Foundation, we've been working on an effort to digitize the state of agtech and food tech across Africa and other emerging markets, trying to datafy basically the ecosystem and put face to names on a database across Africa at the beginning, and then moving towards other emerging markets. So the first slide, establishing a new baseline. It's actually the agri version of a slide that I've been showing for the last couple of years. I don't know who of you is familiar with the trends that have been happening across the VC space in Africa, but effectively we've seen a major growth over the last few years up to 2022, and then in 2022 there was some sort of drop, what people call the bubble burst, and amazing. Thank you. There you go. So what we're looking at here is basically how investment has been happening across the ecosystem over the past decade. Now, I know there's quite a sharp drop over there, but something that we have been advising against is sort of drawing rushed conclusions. And one of the reasons for this is the fact that if you do take a 10-year approach, you can see can you guys hear me? Yeah, you can see the multiples of growth that we've achieved in as of 2024, and then the 2022-2021 spike are likely to be the byproduct of a renewed optimism after COVID, and also a lot of the cash that has been deployed from the US and the Gulf and China into Africa, and what we are observing right now, some sort of just a return to the mean, return to balance. Why is this important? It's because in many of the circles we all hear that agri is not necessarily one of the most funded sectors. And we've actually observed that the trends in agriculture is, if not the same, actually quite positive compared to the rest of the ecosystem. So, I was just discussing with Jean-Pierre in the last few days. The question was, which are the verticals that have been receiving funding across agri? What we can see.
Try to switch.
No, this is perfect. I think you guys can see.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So the question, what areas have been funded in agri-tech? What we're seeing is differently to more advanced markets where a lot of the focus in Agrifood-tech is now on advanced technology, alternative protein. A lot of what we've seen across Africa and some of the fastest growing markets across Asia and Latin America is the fact that there's a lot of focus on farm technology. So a lot of farm management, a lot of financing for smallholding farmers, right? Drones for agriculture, right? AI to detect crop diseases. Whereas there's less and less funding in the later stages of the funnel, especially when it comes to that like home and cooking tech or like food traceability and supply chain. There are a lot of gaps in the supply chain across the market that are being addressed. They are being addressed by different type of stakeholders. So a lot of the funding goes at the level of farming to increase the yields, to increase productivity at the level of the farm. And most importantly, as we'll see in this slide, a lot of the funding in agriculture, despite it being quite positive, still remains non-commercial, philanthropy-driven, government-driven, and foundation-driven. And one of the good aspects of this is that there's a high focus on, as you've seen, on farm technology, so small-holding farmer, whereas the commercial funders have been shown to have some sort of other type of interest at the later stages of the fund. Another aspect that I find quite positive, and we've seen actually this is specifically for Africa because the report has just come out on Africa, but we've observed similar trends across Latin America and Asia when it comes to emerging markets more than the most developed ones. There's been a diversification geographically of the funding and the innovations. It starts from what we call the innovation diamond, which usually is Kenya, South Africa, Nigeria, and Egypt. And then what happens by way of the companies expanding to their neighboring countries, then there's a trickling down of funding towards the market around it. So you can see a cluster in East Africa, you can see a cluster in West Africa. There's less of a cluster in South Africa. That's more for historical reasons. South Africa is connected, but also not really connected to the neighboring countries. And then Egypt also stands out. There's a bit of a socio-political issue right now around Egypt with obviously Libya and Sudan. So the collaboration, even though we've actually seen across different sectors collaboration happening at the level of innovation between Egypt and Sudan, we can see there's the same trend that we can see in the Eastern Africa region or Western Africa. And also the regional associations are much stronger there than they are in the other parts of Africa. But diversification means distribution of wealth, so we see it as a trend. Now, looking into 5 trends that we've identified through this report, going through them quickly. Ag funding is stabilizing, even though the ecosystem is in decline, as I just mentioned. Early stage funding has grown, but as I said, a lot of the commercial funding that comes at later stage is still quite reluctant, especially after this bubble burst that has happened across the ecosystem. Semi-commercial and non-commercial funders are driving funding in the sector, and we'll observe that. Increasing diversification, not only geographical, but it's in the funding space, and I can address that. And I personally find this one of the most interesting aspects of what's happening in the financing space across emerging markets. And then finally, we've seen an interesting shift towards asset-heavy versus asset-light organization, and I'll touch upon that in a second. So this chart basically shows you that despite the ecosystem, you see all other sectors in yellow, slightly decreasing in funding. AgTech has actually shown resilience. Now, this is not counterintuitive. What happens basically is the counter-cyclicity of funding towards agriculture, because it comes from semi-commercial and non-commercial funding for the most part. What happens is that these organizations tend to still be resilient in times of crisis, or especially when the markets are in crisis. In fact, they usually call to step up their funding. So DFIs, foundation, governments, program initiatives that have like a 5 to 10 year span, they tend to be counter-cyclical when a crisis happens, and so they tend to kind of compensate for the lack of commercial funding. And that's why we attribute this to be like to this the main cause, the main reason why funding in agriculture and climate, I would say, even though this doesn't cover climate innovation necessarily, seem to be resilient sectors. Very early stage funding grew. Later stage funding remains stable. As we said, later stage funding historically has come from the private sector, acquisitions as well, corporate acquisition, IPOs. Now, specifically in Africa, IPOs have been very scarce. Acquisition are on the rise. I wouldn't say acquisition in agri-tech are something that we see much. But what's important is that there has been a significant push in early stage funding. And this comes through a variety of sources. It comes through initiatives like programs. It comes through accelerator programs that have been mushrooming across the world, really. There's US programs that are focused on Africa. There are someone, I think Korea was mentioned earlier. I actually was in Seoul in June for the Africa Korea Summit, and I could see that there's a lot of early stage initiatives that are happening there to fund early stage entrepreneurs. And because of the reluctance to funding the commercial funders, we've seen a push towards bringing into the market a new sort of pipeline of organization with early stage funding. This is basically what I just mentioned, so I could skip this slide. Basically, it's a commercial funder here, so I'm driving because the reason I just mentioned. I'm trying to spare you from reading the numbers because I think we will get bored. And I'm basically being ChatGPT summarizing what the numbers are saying. This is actually a slide from our Africa investment report that comes out at the end of every year. So it only touches upon agri and climate in 2 of the 6 boxes. But one of the aspects that we've seen is not just the specialization of ESO that are entering the ecosystem. ESO stands for entrepreneur or ecosystem support organizations. So it's the diverse set of organizations that include accelerators, programs, initiatives at large that tend to push organizations, private and public, So not necessarily startups, it can be programs, it can be entrepreneurial projects, but it's just a set of initiatives that concur to pushing early stage entrepreneurship and enterprise. But the other aspect of the specialization is the sector. So whereas at the beginning of the decade, let's say venture capital and funding in Africa for entrepreneurship was a bit agnostic but really nascent, what we've seen has been a push towards sector specialization all across the board. And this is to show you that this doesn't only affect climate and agri, but it affects the full funnel. That's health, organization, and Gates Foundation as a whole, for instance, a whole set of initiatives for health. Fintech financial inclusion has been, I call them the cool crew, the Massacre Foundation and the CFI and the Axion, the entire group of funders based in the US mostly that have been pushing financial inclusion across emerging markets. They are one example of what is happening. We've seen the same in agriculture, we've seen the same in climate smart agriculture, especially as a sub-niche and climate. And these are some of the names that you can see that are focused on that have specific funds or programs. I'm happy to share all of this later for you guys to have it as a reference. And then the other aspect is a lot of the funding historically in the last 10, 15 years have been attributed to equity, and a lot of the analysis was around equity. What we've seen, especially as commercial funders and VCs kind of take a step back from the ecosystem or let's say a pause, they're trying to really figure out where to devote the resources. We've seen the rise of debt financing and grants and challenges. And this has been a critical push that is not just because it's brought more money into the ecosystem, but it's also because it's forced people to rethink whether everything is actually fit for VC or whether there can be alternative financing routes to support the early stage organization and late stage organizations. And then finally, I would say that this is the last interesting aspect. So at the beginning of the 2010s, when I would say the African innovation space started really growing, there was a lot of focus on replicating successful models from the Western world into Africa. I remember when I first landed in Nairobi in 2018, there were 15 ride-hailing companies like Uber. And right now there's Uber and Bolt, right? There has been and this cuts across, I would say, most of the sectors, right? And a lot of the focus was around pushing similar like B2C models that would scale. The unit economics wouldn't be questioned, the purchasing power purchasing power of the market wouldn't be questioned. And especially there was not a lot of questioning of the differences between, say, Silicon Valley as a role model and African markets. And the result was a lot of the companies basically lasted very few years, and then they either got pushed out of the market or they got maybe acqui-hired. And so what happens right now is that we've seen actually funding going to medical equipment companies, or one of the companies that keep getting funding is a company called Sun Culture in East Africa, and they're doing IoT and solar-powered irrigation systems that are not necessarily a VC backable model, but is definitely an investable target. And there has been, or another company that has been thriving in both Indonesia and in East Africa are companies like a company called Victory Farms, a company called eFisher in Indonesia. They work a lot on aquaculture. So no one has ever really associated aquaculture with VC, and despite obviously the fact that it could be models that can be VC backable, historically there has been, these are more linear growth models for these companies, and we're seeing more interest from investors in companies that have realistic, but like viable and realistic models that may not be 100x return for their investor, but it can actually show growth and consistency versus asset-light apps that can be quickly pushed out of the market because of low barrier to entry. So maybe 5 areas of scope focus, and yeah. So the last two slides, and then I'll leave. 5 areas of focus based on a lot of the work that we've done advising and producing data. We've seen that there has been a focus on the business models rather than the actual product. As I said with the very last slide on hardware, it's not necessarily what you're building, but whether there's a viability in what you're doing. And there's been a lot of questioning from the side of the investors as to what actually can grow. Reimagine the ecosystem support stack. So this is the kind of terminology that Brighter has started adopting to basically identify the ecosystem of organization that can go to support values. So that the variety of organization can go to building an ecosystem, right? So funders, technical partners. We're actually working with CG on datifying technical assistant partners across Africa, because we've seen that being maybe an overlooked area of the market. The funnel from early stage to late stage, from technical assistance to acquisition, and then expertise, sector verticalized expertise. So start thinking, this is another word to say system thing, or ecosystem level thing. So not just thinking in terms of funding funded, or funding leads to returns, but really what are the different steps that the market need to take in order for that very market to thrive. Point number 3, increase diversity and innovation in funding. As I said earlier, it's no longer just about equity, it's also about the different types of funding that are in the market. Engage and align with the corporates. So this is kind of a conversation that stemmed from the fact that in Africa there was a lot of myths and monsters around IPOs. Everyone wanted to go to the New York Stock Exchange. And as soon as we had a couple of mildly successful examples, a lot of the focus shifted towards acquisitions, and a lot of these acquisitions were actually in the form of trade sales into corporates. And so the corporates have entered the scene much more strongly. We work with banks. The last slide. Works with banks, and they are looking, software companies that are looking to acquire companies instead of just putting money and looking for a VC type of return. And then find commercial use case for AI inclusion and climate. I might have just missed that part of the slide on the sector, but basically we are seeing a lot of growth on AI, financial inclusion and climate, and gender inclusion. And this is correlated to the fact that a lot of the funding in the agri space is still coming from non-commercial funders, and there's a big impact framework that a lot of the foundation, a lot of government impact funders are following and are respecting. And so a lot of the focus is not just on the growth of the market per se, but also on the impact metrics and the SDGs. So and AI obviously is just just entered the scene because of the speed at which is now occupying everyone's conversation. I'll just wrap it up to say, obviously system thinking is very critical when looking at the market. No wonder, it's no news. So we've been trying to draw 6 different points, I would say 5 plus 1. Looking at the financial aspect, the policy aspect, the technical aspect, the linkages aspect, the inclusion/impact, and then CSA was specifically because it's something that we're looking into climate smart agriculture, but these I would do CSA/verticalization of expertise. And so these are, I would say, the 6 aspects that we see as critical when designing a market entry strategy or a program or a funding initiative. Thank you. I'm sorry if I spoke very quickly. We can give all this presentation to everyone and you can then read the way you want. Thank you again, Giampiero and CG and everyone for inviting me. Great.
Thanks once again to Dario Giuliani for that insightful keynote. We will surely consider these trends and opportunities throughout today's discussions, especially as we transition into our first panel, the promise of emerging agri-food tech solutions. Just how are these technologies transforming productivity, and what challenges stand in the way of realizing their fullest potential, especially in the global south? What also are the determinants of success for partnerships that address these challenges in the scaling and uptake of solutions? To address these questions and more, please welcome the moderator of our first panel, Frida Kozlowski, Deputy Director, ARC Accelerator, and Head of Operations at Kindling, to introduce our panelists.
Thank you so much, everyone, and welcome to the first panel session. We have a great group of people here today. You will see them here on the side, but just to remind you, we have Martino Melli, Head of Office at the Italian Agency for Development Cooperation in Cairo. We have Ana Maria Lobo Guerrero, Director for Adaptive and Equitable Food Systems at the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. Sorry, for the mic. We have Serene Seva, Managing Partner at the Climate Resilient Africa Fund, Angela Bonato, CEO of Beetroots, as well as Cecilia D'Alessandro, Deputy Workstream Head for Sustainable Food Systems at the European Centre for Development Policy Management. Thank you so much for Thank you so much for walking over as I was reading out your names and titles. The first thing I want to focus on is all those new emerging innovations that are coming out in the Agrifood-tech space. And therefore I wanted to ask our panelists here as representatives of impact VC, development agencies, as well as the startup scene, what are the technologies you're really excited about right now? Sharif, thank you for doing the honors of starting.
Well, firstly, thank you very much to CG and thank you for my fellow panelists. I think we as a VC, we're a Pan-African VC that invests in agri-food and climate. And the way we tackled what do we start with is we spent a lot of time identifying what are the problems in our geographies. So when we speak about agri-food, I won't bore you with the data that everyone in the room knows, but very quickly, 80% of food produced in Africa is produced by smallholder farmers. And yet, under 1% of investment goes into, funding goes into smallholder farming food systems. So we started with that, and we understood that the problem and the opportunity is that they're very fragmented. So the first thing that we are excited about backing is technologies that cluster them into what we were discussing before, economically viable units that can then work with banks, with insurance companies, with input providers, with distributors. So that we see is key. I want to quickly say that one of the interesting things that our friend from Brighter Days mentioned is how we work together as an ecosystem. So VC is a very small chunk of rather unimportant money whose role is to de-risk the market enough for the big money to come in and invest, right? So each one of us plays a role. Critical for us to understand that the continent is moving away from just patient and philanthropical money, which, as my friend from Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation is critical to and was a cornerstone of allowing us to come in. So they kind of de-risk us and we de-risk the next pool of capital. But there is commercial viability in Africa. And I think now it's time to prove it, right? So this ecosystem, again, as was mentioned before, started off in VC with generic funds. Kind of panicked post-corona. Everybody was like, oh my God, the food systems are so globalized and it's we suddenly might not have food on our shelves. We need to invest in transforming the food systems. And that has happened, and it pushed a lot of generalist funds to come into a space based on the success of fintech. So a lot of people put money and made money in fintech and thought they could come in into this very real economy with people who are struggling to survive. Every harvest, they're starting from zero and thinking that technology is the solution to all evils. You just hold this smartphone and it will change your life. It doesn't work that way, right? So sorry, I'm over talking
Just like,
yeah.
what are the key technologies?
So key technologies, yes,
Okay.
back to key technologies. So key technologies are clustering, so technology that allows us to cluster to make an impact. Another one is technology that allows farmers to take better decisions, right? So we need to understand that being poor and a farmer doesn't mean you're dumb. You just need support, right? So you need support in being able to take a better decision. So precision agriculture for us is also very important. We are keen on the biotech world, where we really think that organizations like CG can play a vital role for us, because a lot of the solutions are coming out from the global north and are not finding a way to come into the global south because they're scared. Where do I go in Kenya? Who do I speak to in Uganda, right? But those links with the likes of some of the panelists here are exactly how you get food, right? We all have boots on the ground. Lastly, we are very keen on supply chain optimization. In Africa, from when we produce a tomato, we lose anywhere from 40 to 60% from farm to fork. So just that optimization can be a major difference maker.
Thank you so much, Sharif. Maybe over to Anna Maria to hear the view of philanthropic foundations and maybe something about climate as well, because I know we talked a lot about being climate resilient and what that means for us.
Yeah, so I will build a little bit on what was just said, and just to emphasize something that got in my mind when I was listening to the previous session, and it's how investments have increased for getting finance to small-scale producers and farm management. And somehow, and I don't know if this is a contradiction or not, but what we are seeing, and you mentioned this, is a very, very small fraction of that finance going into small-scale producers. And I think that in here is where we have a huge gap that we need to bridge. We need to make sure that these technologies are really reaching the small-scale producers. And when you think about climate, it's very relevant because these small-scale producers are the ones that are in the front line of these climate variability and extremes impacts, and are the ones who have their livelihoods depending on what they grow. So this means a flood or a drought can mean just having zero income for the following months. So just to put a little bit of nuance into what the report was saying that was presented before, and the huge gap that we as a community need to think about on how to get credit, how to get finance for reducing the risk of doing agriculture, especially for small-scale producers. So having said that, let me go to your question. What we are doing, we're very excited about many things, but one of those is how we can use AI and digital tools to bring climate information to farmers. So climate information services, and we have conducted a lot of evaluations that speak about the power of climate information in the hands of farmers when it is delivered in a way that they can act upon this information. So not just saying that the average is going to be below or above normal temperature, but really combining this climate information with actionable solutions. So what to do? Once that we have a forecast for the following 4 to 6 weeks, what are the strategic adaptation actions that small-scale producers can implement to respond better to these changes in climate variables? So we see a lot of potential of using artificial intelligence, of bundling, and I want to emphasize the importance of this bundling concept. How we just go beyond, and was one of the conclusions from the previous presentation, beyond just a product, and think more about the model that can make those products really generate impact. And another thing that resonated from the presentation was that investors are moving more and donors are moving more to really going into the impact space. So how, and this is where climate, this is where inclusivity makes a lot of sense. So going back to artificial intelligence, digital tools, how we are bundle these innovations, these technologies with the right skills, and really responding to the needs of these small-scale producers so they can use and make good decisions based on these tools. Another one that we are very excited, and we have been working with the CGIAR as well on this, and I'm very enthusiastic about this, is using genome editing and other tools to expedite the speed of coming up with varieties that respond better to climate stress. So what we see the potential of this kind of work in order to, again, thinking about small-scale producers, how can they respond better to these climate extremes? But then the period of time to come with these improved varieties is just too long for what we are needing, for the need that we have. So these AI tools and a variety of them, and we are testing them, can really have a huge potential of making this period shorter so that we can be able to bring those improved varieties to farmers.
Thank you so much, Anna Maria. Maybe over to Angela, who with beetroots is basically one innovation here on our panel. Could you tell us a little bit more about what you do at beetroots and maybe what else you see emerging in that startup ecosystem?
Okay, yeah, sure. Like my startup Beetroots is trying to tackle drought periods, so like not too much water, but like when the water is not present, by using hydrogens that are keeping the water into the soil and then releasing it to the roots of the plants. So helping farmers to survive these periods. And it is a completely sustainable choice because like it's completely natural, derived from algae and with green chemistry. So like when it degrades, it's also nourishing the plants and the microorganisms of the soil. But I will tell you more about this later. In general, like the startup ecosystem is growing a lot in the agri-food-tech sector, as I see. A lot of AI as well, because like as I said, it's very important to try to predict and try to adapt in time to what is happening. And a lot also like on the food stability, so like food production in general. The thing is, I like a lot this ecosystem because it's my first startup trial, so like I didn't know it before, but I see that all the people that are there are really passionate about what they are doing, so it's not something, as Massimo was saying before, that the business is done for money. In this case, it's really done from people that are seeing the future and they want to shape it in the best way. So I really love this, and I hope they will survive. But obviously, like we will see, like if their business is actually able to do that. But in general, like it's a very big ecosystem, and I love how it's going to shape. And also, like there are more and more means that are driving these innovators towards the right path now. So I think yeah, like it's a good path.
Thank you so much. I think you can keep that in mind, just in case the next question comes up. And I think I want us to move into the partnerships. Like today's all about partnerships, multilateralism, we've already heard it. Thank you, Gian Piero. And I'd like to start by diving a little bit deeper into that relationship between research organizations, scientists themselves, and the different audiences of the solutions they're developing. Especially about like how we can actually effectively leverage partnerships to address a potential disconnect between market needs and research innovations. We've heard a little bit about that already, as well as what role co-creation or more participatory approaches can play in ensuring that innovative solutions actually get adopted by farmers.
No, thank you for the question. I think it's important to talk a little bit about the research process as well. And we talked a lot about what are the key emerging solutions that are in the field, but asking ourselves the question, are we involving the ultimate end users of those solutions? That's key. Are the farmers really in need of those innovations that are being developed? Are they responding to their needs? So I think here the key aspect and also can actually increase uptake and impact, societal impact also of the innovation is involving farmers since the beginning of the research process. A couple of years back, we've done an evaluation of the EU support to sustainable food systems in partner countries, for example, at ECDPM. And one of the countries we visited was Malawi. There we really saw, among the many EU-funded programs that we had, to analyze several were on research and innovation, and those that were the most successful were indeed those programs where there was an effort to create stronger linkages between the researchers, the agricultural extension officers, and the farmers. So in a way, the programs were investing at the same time into strengthening the national extension system, so ensuring that farmers had access to the advice they needed, but also bringing the researchers closer to the farmers. So bringing them to the fields of the farmer to experiment with them, try new solutions, and they identified, for example, the banana sector had been heavily impacted by a disease that had wiped out almost all banana trees in the country. And in several regions where there was, implementation of these programs, they could see that working with the farmers led to rehabilitate the sector by growing new varieties that were resistant to the disease directly in the fields of the farmers. So in a way, it empowers them also to experiment in their own field and find the solutions that they need.
Does someone else want to talk about participatory approaches and how to involve the scientists? Maybe Anna Maria with her old CGIAR hat on. And
of course. So we had similar experiences in relation to this co-creation. I think that it is very important. Many of our technologies fail to be scaled because we don't understand the users and we don't understand the needs. And many times we include this analysis in terms of user as an afterthought. So once that we have developed the technology, we feel so proud of what we have been able to accomplish, and then it's time to scale it and to make all these millions of small-scale producers benefit from it. Well, surprise, doesn't work like that. So as much as from the very beginning, from thinking about the theory of change, so how these, and you spoke about partnerships. So these different stakeholders have specific roles in terms of all the way from even starting thinking about the research question that we want to address. So usually we as scientists start with our research question on something that we are passionate about. Because we love doing science. But I think that for this knowledge to generate impact, we really need to go back and even from the phase of asking which is the relevant research question, including the users into this, because that's going to shape these research questions, and therefore it's going to shape the way that we deliver innovations, and it's going to change the innovation itself. So for me, it's being very serious about this process of having a clear theory of change on how we go from our research and how we work collectively with a variety of stakeholders, researchers, donors, private sector in different ways, governments, in order to move from a point where we are right now to another point in the future where we want to be and what needs to happen in between. Usually that in between, we don't spend much time that in between. So it's being very careful about this, but it's starting from the very beginning with the people that we want to benefit, starting asking research questions and moving all the way through with them.
If I may add something, if I understood the questions, would be very interesting to analyze how to ensure that innovation comes from the global north to the global south and to facilitate this process. Because finally, we have to be very efficient on this process and make the innovations available to local communities and financeable and trustable. So there are several points that can be highlighted in this sense. I would like to mention, for example, the importance of local partnerships. The importance of local partnership is key in this process, and this can be declined in several steps. I just highlighted a few points. First of all is the contextual knowledge. Contextual knowledge that brings local partnership into action. That is very important to validate the process. The second point is community trust. So the process has to be tested at community level and to be not only endorsed but absorbed at local level in order to be accessible and usable. The fourth one is the efficiency of the operations. The operation must be efficient and go straight to the needs of the final recipients. Furthermore, this very common word abused sometimes is sustainability of the process. The adaptive technological processes must be sustainable. Sustainable not only in the moment of the adoption, but in the longer terms for the recipients, and of course adaptable to the different situation, and variability declined by the climate change situation that moment by moment we have to face different solution and situation.
Thank you so much, Martino. I was about to say, Sharif probably feels a particular way about bringing innovations from the global north to the global south, especially as having an office in Copenhagen, having been there and then doing impact elsewhere. Talk us through your view on this.
Yeah, thank you, Frida. Well, I actually want to speak about South-to-South cooperation. So North to South is critical because, of course, a lot of the innovations are coming, but we have a problem. So you find something very good, an enzyme that works excellent, you find a new variety that you've genomically edited that is great for wheat and saline tolerance or whatever, but then how do you commercialize it? Because the big distributors are not interested because it's just not big enough. But that's a different discussion. But South to South, we cheat. So because our geography is Africa, I spent a lot of time studying what happened in South Asia, because we really think that South Asia is a mirror into the future of Africa. We went a step ahead of that as well. We tied in with possibly the largest agri-food. Oh, sorry. I broke the mic. We tied in with Omnivore, who's actually part of our IC, to really understand that relationship, right? And we found some very interesting pathways. So when I look at, Africa, of course, as you all know, we're the fastest growing population in the world, we're the youngest population in the world, we all know this information. What does that mean? It means it's going to get harder and harder. We're also, along with South Asia, the most vulnerable. So it is expected that in the coming decade, we're already about 60% less in terms of average yields than the global average crop yields. It's expected to go down a further 25%. So again, we studied South Asia, and we found some very interesting data points. I'll try to be very quick about this. South Asia increased their food production in the last 30 years by 2.3x, using the same amount of land, plus or minus, that they were growing on. Africa, in the same period, increased our food production by 0.3x, using 2.4 times the amount of land used to produce. Now that's critical because, and Anna Maria mentioned this, the relationship of agri-food and climate, it's a no-brainer, right? So I think a lot of lessons to be learned by South-to-South cooperation, how they have cracked that nut, and the path that Africa needs to take to be able to feed the fastest growing population. How you do that is, for example, in my world of VC, is connecting with other successful VCs in South Asia, is connecting with different ecosystem players. And all of us have different roles. We all share the desire to make it a better world. But I think it's time now that we have to face the reality that unless it is commercially viable, investable, making money, we're never going to curb the funding gap, right? We can keep on just every year, we all meet and we say, this is what we need in order to reach climate positivity. The gap is only getting bigger. Now we need to understand that Africa, we have the youngest population, we have the most unused arable lands in the world, we have the longest coastlines, We have huge markets. Let's make some money. And money is not a bad word. Money in the context of sustainability. So making money in a sustainable fashion that then provides a better life for the people we're all trying to work for. Yeah.
If I may on this argument, coming to the Egyptian experience actually, because before I was posted in Asia, in Vietnam, so I can easily compare maybe the two different situations. Of course, Asia is very work intensive, means of production are very accessible, and the farmers are quite prone to absorb the innovation. Instead, a situation in Egypt that means of production are rather available. Of course, meteorological and soil conditions and agricultural conditions completely different because, for example, in South of Asia, water is not a constraint. Can be a different adverse problem in production. But I think that the main problem is the absorption of the new technology, how to reach farmers. For example, digitalization, innovation, digitalization can be a mean for Africa. Be able to reach with innovation the farmers because right now is not an easy process. So digitalization can help a lot. Develop appropriate packages on this and reach farmers even in very remote areas where, for example, we know very, very well that this can be a problem in innovation. How to reach the remote farmers or the people very much disadvantaged. Digital it could be an answer. And we are thinking actually, as a development cooperation, we are thinking something and develop an appropriate package on this in order to be able to, the smallest farmers at the disadvantage, to be able to participate in development process. But also, on the other side, maybe, in South Asia, not only Southeast Asia, financement is very much more available. And informal and informal sector are very active in this, they are prone to invest in the environment. Instead, in Egypt, still the big capitals, the big investors are very active, very good, very well prepared, very on the market, but there is no connection between the big investors, the big financial capitalists, and the small producers. There is a big gap to be filled up. So this, I think, that on my experience, on my position in between the two countries, what are the main constraints I would like to identify and put on the table for further discussion. Thank you.
Can I add to you? Because I very much agree on the South-South collaboration, and we have many problems when we try to transfer something from north to south. And one of the things that are very powerful is, because many of these innovations, one of the barriers are cultural dimensions. And farmers used to do things in a very specific way because they have been doing these things in this way forever. And livestock in Colombia is an example of that. And how to introduce innovation through silvopastoral systems, even though they make a lot of sense in terms of business case, there are many cultural barriers that prevent these innovations to be implemented. But what I have seen in many projects is the power of peer-to-peer sharing experiences, farmer to farmer. And we used to do that when I was working for the CGIAR. We had these, it was a really beautiful project called Climate Analogs. So what we did was to go to places where they were managing climate in a specific way with some specific characteristics of the climate, and they have been very successful, and go to a place where, according to our climate scenarios, they were going to be experiencing the same challenge. And just getting these farmers together and talking about their experiences and demonstrated how they were making money of implementing these innovations was amazing, how it changed minds in terms of really going ahead and being interested in this. So the power of this outside collaboration, it's something that we should be thinking more. And then the other one that I want to strengthen is policy, also in policy, because policy is another tool that can help us in terms of incentivizing the use of these innovations. And I think that's outside collaboration in terms of policies that have worked for specific cases, for promoting specific technologies, and that can have a successful story to tell, are also powerful in terms of moving other countries into that.
I was wondering whether, Angela, you want to share your experience with kind of having an innovation here, develop here, and kind of bringing it to the global south, and what some of the challenges there were, and how maybe partnerships could help, maybe with distributors on the ground, something along those lines.
Yeah, so in general, like I've been in the business since like 1 year, and we are trying still to understand like what are the channels that we can use to reach like other areas in the world. Because the agri-food sector is already complicated here in Italy, because there are a lot of super small farmers, so they are in the cooperatives, so like we have to obviously tackle the cooperatives first and not the one by one. But in every state is different, so like we don't actually know enough like of other parts of the world in order to arrive there, because obviously like if you have a solution, obviously you have to know like if it's financially viable for other parts of the world, so like if it's cheap enough, or like if it's also viable for other reasons. So unfortunately, from the startup world, we don't know yet enough. We need something like these collaborations that are here today in order to understand it better, for sure, and speak with other collaborations probably, like. Yeah, and governments, but yeah, like we find that it's a little bit difficult, and that's why like we are normally focusing on our neighboring countries, because we already know what's there, and it's just easier, unfortunately.
Perfect. And I know we've already slightly touched on the kind of financial institutions that we see world around it, but in order to, I mean, finance is a big topic, and when we're talking about the challenges and the barriers, we will get back to that and to discuss that in detail anyways. But I was more wondering whether you know any successful partnerships or initiatives where you're directly bringing in the kind of financial institutions locally, or other ways of just supporting farmers on the ground.
Yes.
Thank
you.
It should be working. Up and down, just watch your finger when you're speaking.
Thank you very much for the question, because it's very important, very on top of the problems. So the problem is to develop appropriate packages and to be available those packages to the marginalized farmers, because very normally they are not able to participate in even into the microfinancial system due to barriers, lack of knowledge, lack of guarantees, for example, lack of insurances that can insure them to participate in this circle, and so they are very much stabilized on this. So for us, we are just inaugurating a new collaboration with private sector, private banks in Egypt, where we are bringing in the microfinance packages appropriate, tailored to the small farmers into selected areas. Especially, we are dealing with small farmers, marginalized areas, in order to try to bring them into the market, into the production, and bring on added value for them, and insert them into a modern value chain. So we have been developing packages together with the private banks. We are providing technical assistance, and the privates they are adding capitals. And beside that, we are bringing also other capitals in order to add guarantees, in order to lower make more accessible, I would say, the financial interest and conditions for the small farmers. This is, I think, that we can make an example of South-South cooperation, because bringing local private capitals into development with a kind of win-win approach. And we are trying to actually to develop this even in not only for small farmers, but into a new and new ideas that is local market farmers organizations. With the Farmers Alliance, we are developing a system of local farmers distributed among the country, and we are trying to these small farmers that we approach them to the market, local market, regularly into big cities, but not only big cities, and then we, in order to get them into the system, we try to develop a very favorable microfinance packages in order to get them not only into innovation but into the market. So we do both the work. Thank you.
So I think that you touch on a very important point, and some efforts that we are doing in terms of that. And I think that one key dimension is that small-scale producers are not accessing enough credit. And climate, going back to climate, what climate is doing is that it's making agriculture riskier. So it's hard to invest in agriculture because you don't know what is going to happen in the following months, years in relation to temperature, precipitation, evapotranspiration. So we believe in the foundation that a game changer is trying to assess better these climate risk in agriculture. And we are working with the CGIAR on this ADAPTA project, and we are planning to have a second phase of that. And I'm very positive about that project because it speaks about that. How do we make sure that banks and credit unions are really assessing climate risks? And all tools in relation to that, including climate sensitive scoring tools for microcredit financial organizations, can really change what is happening in terms of small-scale producers accessing credit. So there's a lot of challenges in relation to that, but we believe from the foundation side that this is something where we all collectively should putting our heads and money into this, because it can really make things change for small-scale producers that are ready to implement these innovations, but which are expensive. Some of these have very high upfront costs, and it's hard for small-scale producers to have the money available to put on that. If we can somehow increase the amount of credits that are going to small-scale producers, including having a credit history, which these evaluations of climate risk in agriculture can help, that could really change things and mobilize more resources and accelerate the use of these innovations.
Thank you so much for identifying the challenge and obstacle and having a solution to it as well, which is fantastic.
Yeah, thank you. Yes, very much what Anna Maria said. I think we look at it, we break down what are the problems, right? So what does the farmer want? The smallholder farmer wants to move from being a subsistence farmer to actually one day being a commercially viable farmer. What do the banks want? The banks want data. So they want somebody to say, is this a farmer that pays on time? What size are they? Where are they? What's their history? What do the off-takers want? They want continuity. So they want to be able to get the basket of products today, tomorrow, and after tomorrow, right? So what we've seen in the ecosystem is technology. To Massimo's point, technology is the enabler. But we looked at it wrong in this ecosystem, in my opinion. We thought technology is the only enabler. So we saw a lot of the best funded startups in the last 10 years in Africa were marketplace aggregators. Some cases they raised $50 million, $80 million, did really well, only to realize that technology is not the solution to all evils, because they were fixing their own problem, and quickly they found that they grew to a level where the smallholder farmers were not growing with them. And that is because they didn't understand what the smallholder farmer needs, right? So we back solutions that understand very critically, right? So many of these solutions who got a lot of money then decided, let me go plant it myself. Catastrophe, because are you a digital platform, are you a farmer? And many of them failed, right? So we don't need to recreate the wheel. The smallholder farmer knows what they're doing, they just need to be enabled. How do you enable them? You enable them first by linking them to a sustainable, higher revenue generating market. That's number one, right? Then you start to look at, okay, in order to survive and grow, they need access to credit. But the banks don't want to get them into the door, right? So that's a difficult one. But let me give you a quick example. My last investment in a startup in Nigeria, these guys, very simply, they understood that they could not go to every smallholder farmer that is very fragmented and collect data points. So when they broke down the middleman chain, so the 5-6 middlemen from farm to fork, they made sure to keep the first one, because the first one is she or he lives in the village. They know all the smallholder farmers, and they're the first level aggregator. And they enabled this first level aggregator to become an agent. So that agent now makes more money because they have the offtake agreements. That agent is not selling to the second middleman. They're now making a part of the pie from the final offtaker. So they're happier. They're bringing in more and more smallholder farmers. The bank suddenly came in, Sterling Bank, which is quite a big bank in Africa, and said, wow, this is really interesting, because now you're giving me data that is de-risked. So you're giving me a credit rating system where I actually I'm okay giving money. So it's that understanding of the different problem pain points of the different ecosystem players and putting it in together. And technology for sure is the way forward.
Okay. I think it's fine. If we're talking about ecosystem players, I think one thing I want to touch upon briefly before we move to the next section is kind of policy and governance related aspects. Kind of in what way can they influence whether innovations are being taken up by farmers and scaled, and maybe Julia on that one.
No, thank you for the question. I think this is a really important aspect that we have perhaps not touched upon that much yet in policy and governance aspects. I mean, it also touches upon finance, because of course the kind of policies that are in place that support or do not support financial inclusion are, having an impact in the ability of farmers to invest in, or also like agri SMEs to invest in specific innovation. So, of course, policies that enable an ecosystem, a financial ecosystem that is diverse enough, that is incentivized to provide specific products and services that serve the agri-food world. I think that's key. But more broadly, I think the question, we need to ask the question also: are governments supportive enough of innovation more broadly? Are they investing themselves? When we look at the national budgets, and if we take, for example, the example of African countries, we have a biennial review that allows us to see whether or not are they meeting their target, their cut up 10% target of spending in agriculture. Most of these countries are not meeting this target, but also when you break it down and you look at where is the investment going, when we look at the national budgets, most of the time it's not in research and innovation, it's not in extension services, perhaps it's in input subsidy programs, which are not as impactful as as the money could be if it was spent in R&I, in extension. That's one. And then also governments, I think, can be even more in explicit in giving a strategic direction. For example, with tax breaks, if they want to support startups. So there are policies that can be put in place to really support an innovation ecosystem from a variety of points of view. And now if we look at it also from a, you mentioned also governance, so not just from a national perspective, but we're talking also about international cooperation, multilateralism. I think we need to also look at how the overall landscape for R&I financing looks like globally, and what is the governance of that. And we can see that it's still very fragmented. Even, I mentioned earlier that this EU evaluation we've done, even at only looking at the EU funds, the way R&I is financed comes from different packages. There's oftentimes it's even difficult to track them down to see where the funding is going. And that poses issues when we think of what priorities are they serving. Because of course, if most of the funding is coming from donors, from multilateral institutions, from philanthropic foundations, they may be serving specific interests that are not necessarily aligned with the receiving country. So like an overview, getting a better overview of what are the different interests and incentives of the different actors that are involved in international partnerships, I think it's crucial.
Thank you so much. And you're already moving into the final part that I wanted to talk about is kind of the next steps. What can we do to work better together for the benefit of all involved to make sure we scale these innovations effectively and ensure that uptake, of course. And yeah, on one hand, aligning interests better, but maybe there are some other suggestions there as well.
So I can say something.
Oh, sure. Okay. Thank you so much.
It's okay. Yeah. So I think that there are many opportunities right now that we should use. And I'm just thinking about the last climate summit, the COP28, and there was an important thing that happened there, which was the UAE declaration. And 160 countries committed to accelerate innovation in agriculture. So we have a huge opportunity in front of us. 160 countries that are ready to get what is needed to accelerate innovation in the agricultural sector, thinking about food systems that are resilient, that are inclusive, that are healthy. So I think that we have in front of us a very interesting homework to do, which is how do we translate the COP28 declaration into actions? How do we engage with these governments? And I think that what you mentioned in terms of the policy and sustainability and governments is very, very important. So we need to make sure that governments are including in their budgets investments for these innovations, for research, for extension systems. And I believe that the COP28 declaration is a way to do that. And you know, we have the CGIAR, we have FAO, we have a lot of organizations that can go into these 160 countries and work with them and make sure that we are accelerating innovation for benefiting small-scale producers in this country. So let's use the opportunity.
Thank you so much, Anna Maria. I think we are at time as well. I've seen some hand signs, so thank you so much. That's a nice note to end it on. Thank you to our panelists. And I don't know, do we have time for a few questions from the audience? Yes? Yeah? Yes or no?
I can take a microphone around.
That's okay, yeah. If we have any questions.
Kind of works.
To our speakers, I mean, we have some very interesting players representing very different interests in the entire ecosystem. So now's the chance to ask any burning questions you might have.
And if it's not now, we'll have the reception exhibition
Sounds good.
afterward to ask questions to all of our speakers. All right, well, looks like.
Just as a small one on one elephant in the room that we see a lot on the private sector incentives in countries to maintain their revenue streams and therefore lobbying against policy change or maybe going against these ecosystems that may, with short-sighted way of thinking sometimes, take them out of business. So how do you tackle with this real on-the-ground politics of well-accommodated private sector vis-a-vis what you're presenting here? Easy one.
Maybe I can try it. So, we don't spend too much of our time on trying to fix that because it's too big of a nut for us to crack, right? But we also see that the startups move at such a pace that governments just try and catch up, right? Also, a sad reality is that none of the startups that actually get funding are domiciled in Africa, with the exclusion of possibly Mauritius, right? So we have a lot of big problems to handle. I don't have a solution, but what we have started to see on a positive note is that because of the speed of transformation, the speed of change, the speed of impact, governments are really taking on a comprehensive look and trying to figure out how can we catch up. I have a feeling other players in the room, like CG and different players, you're the bridge to curb that gap, because it's too big of a conversation for us to have. It's above our pay grade. So we leave it to you. So I throw the question back to you.
If I may integrate the intervention, I think that create a regulatory environment that can be conducive in order to overcome all this, these aspects, at least a part of this. And very, very often this regulatory framework, it doesn't exist. So those problems are presented quite a strong way. So can be conducive to help the governments and the lobbies also to understand the importance to have a regulatory framework to regulate all this process.
And if I just can add a little comment to that. So subsidies is an entry point for this, and repurposing subsidies, and there are tons of calculations from the World Bank, from IFPRI, in relation to all like these subsidies not really going in the right direction in terms of sustainability. So that's another opportunity that we have, engagement with the governments in relation to these subsidies and repurposing.
Maybe, sorry, just one last thing, because I actually just lived through it 2 weeks ago. Uganda did a very interesting event, very similar to what you did today. You brought in different ecosystem players to talk, you know. Uganda did that exact same thing. So they launched about 2 weeks ago an initiative where they brought in players from all the different ecosystem stakeholders, and they sat in a room for a couple of days discussing how to develop the regulatory environment, how to develop the ecosystem of startups in Uganda. And that's a great beginning.
Do we have any other last questions? Or yes, over there.
Maybe more of a comment. I think following on what he says, something that we've seen in terms of collaboration, that maybe it's been seen in financial inclusion, it's been sandboxes where, thanks, we've seen maybe like in South Africa a bit more, the ecosystems are a bit more advanced. The use of like it's a techie terminology, the sandbox, but basically it's a way to create a control, it's like a controlled trial, to use like a research terminology, to basically explore the integration between like a private sector with a government policy framework and maybe a corporate core business. So between like banks and fintechs, and then the broader regulatory framework. I suspect we've also seen something like that in health for like electronic medical records. I'm aware of hospitals being leveraging startups, for instance, for electronic medical records. I haven't seen too much in agri, but I may be biased towards startups because I'm sure they're at the level of like innovation and scientific innovation, there must be something like that. But at the level of like tech startups, scale-ups, I haven't seen much of that. So I guess on top of the regulatory framework, Sandbox, I guess, is a segment of regulatory framework. Could be, I don't know if you've seen any of that in the space. No.
Well, we'll have plenty of time to discuss it at the exhibition and reception to follow.
Thank you so much, Nick.
So again, everyone, please thank our moderator and our panelists. Thank you all. We have a wealth of examples to inspire the next themes of discussion, and look forward to the continued leaderships of your institutions to bring that promised impact to fruition. So thank you again. Following those perspectives, we are joined by innovators taking action to develop and scale agri-food-tech solutions. These success stories will present insights on the real experience of innovators in the lab and the field. And I will ask the presenters, with respect to the time we have together today, please keep it very concise, because luckily we'll have more time to get into it at the exhibition, where you can connect with their team and learn a lot more about their solutions. So for our first presentation, I will welcome Ahmed Ahmad, co-founder of Nota.
Okay, so good afternoon. First of all, thanks a lot for the CEG to invite us here and to bring us to this. Really, all the discussions that happened so far are extremely on point to a surprising degree. So my name is Ahmed Hamad, co-founder of Milka. We are a next generation herd management platform, and I will take you through what we do and where we are. And it all starts with our story, and when I say our story, I mean humanity with milk. It started around 10,000 years ago, where humans started to consume dairy products from cow. And today we are consuming 700 billion kilograms of cow milk annually. It is not only a key nutritional value to us, to children and adults, it's also a cornerstone for food security, rural development, and poverty alleviation. And all this starts in the dairy farm. Now, if we look at the dairy farms, they have a lot of challenges. First of all, it's a complex operation. The dairy farm needs to take many things into consideration, including the fertility, the reproductive cycle, the health, the vaccination, the feed, optimizing the feed for different stages, moving the animals, grouping them together in a certain way, and measuring the productivity in a continuous manner and bringing it back to all those aspects. It's extremely data intensive and it requires technology. However, at the same time, if you look at the low and medium income countries, you will find that 80% of the milk produced is coming from small hold farms. Those are really with low or no access to technology. So they do not benefit from those tools that can help them. Also, you find them with low productivity, low quality, and maybe no measures for animal welfare. Yeah. The other thing is the environmental impact, and very quickly, the low efficiency of any production impacts greatly the environment, because it means that in simple terms, we need more land, more food, more crops, more energy, more water to produce the same amount of milk. So how do we increase the efficiency? And it's not a simple answer, because in order to improve efficiency, we need to tackle all those aspects of the operations, which means that we need a solution that is comprehensive, that is complete, that is extremely easy to use, that the simple farmer can use it without any computer literacy, and that is accessible to them. So enter Milka. Without really going into details, it's a modern, complete solution that helps farmers get the maximum out of their operation. Okay, it's mobile first. Any farmer can use it without any hardware in their native language, even talking to their phone, whether it's in English or Arabic or Urdu or Swahili. So we covered the easy to use, the complete. What about accessibility? And this is where multilateralism comes into the picture. So first of all, is linking it to the institutions, like it was just said right now. And where the money is the food, the dairy processors. They have their own big farms, but their milk is not enough, so they have to source milk from the smaller farms. What they need is quality, sustainability, and in many of them, they have KPIs for environment and animal welfare and ethical sourcing. And this tool gives them exactly what they need. The other milk collection is the same. The agri-financing, the microfinancers need to make sure that their money is being properly, or that assets that they're financing is properly managed. And social media, like you said, peer-to-peer, is a really, really important channel that cannot be ignored. So where we are right now, we have been doing, back to the deployment, we have been doing our controlled deployment maybe for the past year to make sure that the solution is usable by the small farmers, everybody, even the small farmers, and it's improving all aspects of the operation. We have started last month going into market, and feedback is overwhelmingly positive from big dairy processors, from smaller farms, and even from beef farms who found a very solid business case in the solution. So wish us luck, Stay tuned. We are going to be demoing the solution after this, and sorry for the extra time. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Ahmed. Our next presenter will be Luca Alinavi.
Yep. Yeah. Good afternoon. My name is Luca Alinavi, editor, and I'm the CEO of Aflabox with my co-founder Fabrizio Cardillo here. And the next one, we are a strange organization, technologically driven, based in Italy, made only by people resident in Africa, which is a bit of a bizarre thing for sure. And we are doing one very simple thing. We are testing and profiling cereals and make sure that information is traceable so that we are adding value, helping to have quality understanding along the way of the value chain, which allows to diminish the asymmetry of information and make a number of people getting advantage. Now, what's the problem? The problem started with something that some of you probably knows well, some other less, which is aflatoxin. Now, aflatoxin is a strange toxin, which is in the highest category of the cancerogenic toxin. Yesterday I was reading one interesting paper where 30% of the liver cancer of Africa are coming from aflatoxin. By the way, sorry for my friends, Italian friends, we have the same problem in Italy, Europe, France, etc. We tend to forget it, but unfortunately, aflatoxin are heavily generated in Europe as well, thanks to the climate change. So, very consistent with what was said before. Can you go to the next one, sorry. So 25% according to FAO, 35% according to IFPRI, different number, difficult to give a real number, I suspect, but at least 25% of the global cereals are contaminated by aflatoxin, which means in CDC term, 4.5 billion of people are directly affected by this problem. And trade is massively blocked. Nigeria cannot export peanuts, cannot export pulses, etc., because Europe blocked it because of aflatoxin. Can I go to the next one? And it's becoming slowly a bit more interesting because newspapers start to talk about BBC, etc. A lot of research. Just 7 years ago in US was less than 1,000 papers per year. Nowadays is around 17,000 papers per year just on aflatoxin in the US. Now what we have done is make it simple, because normally what you have a problem, you have to bring this material to check if it's contaminated to a lab, you need chemicals, you need experienced people to do it, you need technology which is not easy to use, and then ends up that a lot of people are not controlling or it costs a lot of money. You have created a system which is based on UV imaging. There's something which doesn't allow to read, but okay, UV imaging and artificial intelligence is a little box where you put inside the grain, you make a click, and in 20 seconds the thing tells you how much aflatoxin, if anything, is there. So it's simple, it's affordable, costs 80% less of what costs a test right now, and easy to use for anyone. You don't need to be an expert. The warehouse guy can do it, and you can measure it in a simple terms. Next one, this is the Aflabox. We are launching it in 3 weeks, but we already sold some of them because we are testing it with friends of WFP, and we are testing it in Kenya, where most of us are residents. I will tell you more. And it's allowing you to understand a bit of aflatoxin, and we have started to expand the capacity of this product. So we are also also showing some of the variables that are important for trade. How many broken, how many length of the kernel, color, and stuff that allow people to trade on the same terms. Next one. Meanwhile, we are already developing the next year product, which also include the full profile of the cereal. So we'll include several toxins, all the most important trading element and information, and the content in nutritional terms, meaning protein, carbs, and fat. Next one. So it's pretty simple. That looks like the first round of technology. We take a picture with UV, we process it with our neural network proprietary system in the cloud, comes back in less than a minute the answer, you get it on your app or on your dashboard, and you get the information. The second round, which will be next year, We're including a blockchain last generation because we need to manage in a bit of complicated manner all the information that comes in the same contract. We are doing traceability along the value chain and providing information all along the value chain. And we make sure that this is managed both at governmental level for the people that are interested in government, but also for business as it is. Next one. In fact, we are doing business model for people in business. So big breweries, big processors, flour millers, etc. But also we are doing a product directly for government to make predictable what is happening. To say to our friends in Nigeria, you can trade because we understand fully how the aflatoxin are acting and where are coming from and where are not coming from, so that the trade can happen. And okay, I lost something. Okay, next one. So for the government, we're trying to organize very granular control. The box is pretty cheap. It's easy to use. Anyone that does control can do it. Agriculture expert, people in the field, county officers, whoever is around, is getting immediate results, and make sure that you have the analytics to make policy making, to take decision, to make it simple, and to drive the process. The next one. So the team is these guys, and we are all basically based in Kenya. To Sharif's point, we can speak a lot afterwards on why we decide to eventually make the first company in 60 years of life in Italy, having all my companies in Kenya, because it's difficult to make certain things happening in a certain way. So, I mean, I have a lot of sympathy for the problem that you are raising. 30 years of experience myself, 30 years of experience Alessio, 35 years of experience of Fabrizio, myself and Alessio in agricultural development, smallholder farmer, trying to solve problems, Fabrizio trading, and is our marketing guru, and then a lot of guys doing artificial intelligence, IT, and solutions that make this group of crazy, strange people working, and it's very fun. I enjoy it a lot. Next one. So I have only 2 calls for action, and I stop it because I think I'm almost on my 5+. One, make private-public partnerships simple. Make possibility to do that partnership in an easy way. Against very, very radical milestone. Use the proper KPI, make it simple. If you sell, it's good. If you don't sell, close it. I don't know, make it, I'm saying as an Italian, which I'm clearly, make it British. Very simple. KPI. you deliver, you continue. You don't deliver, you go home. And make sure that the country gets the real amount of money to make the decision happening. I just want to tell you one thing that I felt extremely important. In all the speech up to now, I never heard the word that for me is essential after 30 years in Africa, which is the farmers are the best entrepreneur in a given condition. Because we continue to treat the farmer as a kind of sub-idiot that need ourselves to hand carry them and tell them, you have to do that, you have to do the other thing, poor guy, you don't understand it, you're looking like that. These guys are making magic with nothing, with sand, with stones. They're incredibly fascinating, smart entrepreneurs. So if you just provide subsidies in the right way and create a condition for them to choose what they need, farmers, traders, and people like that, it will become easy. It will happen, but you have to give the funds with that kind of risk attached, which is not easy because you are not manipulating them, you are accepting that you're taking some risk. Last one, I think, yes, so we do innovation, we make it scalable very easily, that process can be scaled as big as you want, and we have one mission driven that you make the cereal transparent to the market so that people can do business and we can eat safe, because at the end we are all eating dangerous stuff without sometimes knowing it. And that is the content of myself and how to get to it. Thank you.
Thank you, Luca, much appreciated. And our next presentation comes from Christopher Kettle, representing My Farm Trees. Thank you.
So good afternoon, everybody. I'm probably the contrary. I'm the Brit who lives in Italy. So I'm not sure how that's going to pan out. But I'm also a CGIAR scientist, not a tech entrepreneur or a startup. But what I want to make you think about is the reality of the situation that we live on a planet that we as a species have radically changed. We have changed the coverage of our planet by 50% of the tree cover that was there before we started cultivating. And agriculture is one of the principal drivers of biodiversity loss and is a major driver of climate change that coupled together are completely compromising the global food system. So we need massive change to be able to address the resilience of the food system, but also create equitable, sustainable and biodiverse food systems that are going to be moving us into the next generation. And this is exactly what the My Farm Trees platform aims to support doing, using the best available science and, as we've been hearing today, make it fully accessible to smallholder farmers to be able to make the best decisions on their farms in terms of the growing of crops, but also the growing of trees, particularly native trees, that are going to enable them to benefit from that improvement of the environment, from the restoration of those degraded habitats and those degraded lands, to make their farms more resilient, but also to directly receive incentive payments to do that. So the My Farm Trees platform uses a blockchain mobile phone platform to directly democratise the payment of ecosystem service provision by smallholder farmers, but also supports them to be able to build entrepreneurially around that model of that nature-based solution. The next slide, please.
It should try it should work again.
Sorry. So this is Lawrence. Lawrence is a smallholder farmer from West Kenya who actually, already before we met him, had a passion for cultivating, collecting seed of native trees. And if you have any hope in the global commitments to tree planting, you'll already know that one of the major bottlenecks is the availability of planting material, native trees that will deliver benefits. So Lawrence is really interested in being part of that solution, and what My Farm Trees does is enable him to actually be given the information how best to go out and do the seed collection, how best to be able to document and verify that seed collection, and then track all that information within the platform so that he can use the best science available to how to do his job, but also be able to connect with markets so the seed he's collecting is delivered directly to the people who want that seed. And so the platform has three main components. One is about the seed collection for delivering the biodiversity, but Lawrence is also a nursery smallholder, so he actually wants to propagate and cultivate those trees on his farm. So the platform enables him to document and verify the material growing on his farm and to connect with people who want to buy that material. And if you think about the reality in Kenya, for example, the national seed system is run by a single institution that has spent 30 years cultivating exotic tree species and has about a fraction of 1% of the capacity to produce native trees that is needed for Kenya. And so smallholder farmers like Lawrence are going to be critical to building that volume of planting material that can contribute to restoring degraded agricultural land using native trees that not only will support biodiversity and address climate mitigation, but are also some of the most nutritious and healthy foods that we can produce. And we all know if we want to transition to sustainable diets, we're going to need to consume more fruits, more vegetables, more nuts, and less of animal proteins. And so this is actually critical to transitioning and transforming food systems. And this is Rose. Rose is a smallholder farmer from CEST County, and Rose is very aware that she is prone to flooding on the lands where she cultivates because of the lack of interception of rainwater and the water that's moving around that landscape. So she wants to be able to plant trees on her farm, but she wants to be able to plant the right trees that are going to be delivering the greatest benefits to her and also are going to be resilient to climate change. So the My Farm Trees platform not only enables her to have the information on what's the most suitable species that she should be growing, how she should be integrating them into her farm, but also enables her to document and verify where those trees are on her farm using a very simple mobile phone platform, and then to actually receive directly payments for those trees that are growing on her farm. And these can, of course, be directly linked to carbon payments, biodiversity credits. But in the current phase, she's not only able to demonstrate and verify that the trees are growing on her farm, but directly receive an incentive to continue to grow those trees until she starts to accrue all the benefits from the products that come from those trees, but also when those trees start to improve her soil health, improve her local microclimate. Any of you who spend time in sub-Saharan Africa know where the best place to stand is. It's under a tree. And so the platform has been piloted and was funded through the Global Environment Facility in the first two years of its life in Kenya and Cameroon. This is Francis Ador, who's one of our colleagues based in Nairobi, who's been training farmers, been training smallholders, been training nurseries in the use of the platform and registering farmers. And to date, since we started this project 2 years ago, we've already restored 2,800 hectares of degraded smallholder farmland. We've got 6,800 beneficiaries. Over 220,000 seedlings have been collected, distributed through nurseries and distributed to farms. And we have 2,000 users trained under the platform and 88 nurseries that have been trained under this platform. And I should add on that we've also distributed $100,000 already in incentive payments to farmers through the platform. And one very important point I should have mentioned, I've got to wrap up from Jean-Pierre, is the platform uses digital payments. So all of this is integrated within the single platform. So in the context of Kenya, the farmer receives the payments through M-Pesa, and those payments are integrated within the blockchain system. So the reason this is relevant for this discussion is because this provides a very nice example of how multilateralism in terms of economics of global food system sustainability and delivery of ecosystem services can be democratized. So those people who are on the ground actually contributing to addressing climate change and biodiversity issues can receive direct payments for them. And we've already been featured on reality TV shows and had 4 episodes of the Shamba Shape Up TV series, so reaching millions of farmers with the way these models can transform smallholder farmers. And I've run out of time, so I'm going to stop there, although we're already expanding into Asia, Africa, Latin America, and I'm very much open to discussing with any of you who are interested in exploring partnerships. We're already talking to many private sector companies about how these technologies can be integrated into various value chains for corporate social responsibility, but it's very clear blended finance is going to be critical for scaling these kind of solutions. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Chris, and now we will welcome back Angela Bonato, CEO of Feed Roots.
As a consequence of the climate change, we saw that there are areas that are too much water, like flooding, but there are many more areas, a lot of areas as well, that face water scarcity. And this is a problem, especially for farmers that have to use this water to water their crops, and instead see them with great losses. The solutions that are in place at the moment, for instance, the creation of water basins or the use of precision irrigation, are useful and but are expensive and maybe timely to put in place, and most of the times are not always enough. And on top of that, for farmers there are other problems, like the fact that the cost for energy and fertilizers grew a lot, so also the cost of this water is higher. There is the push to go greener, especially in Europe, but there are not the means to do that, and their margins are getting thinner and thinner. But what if we could use the water more efficiently? We at Feed-Roots, we are focusing on the fact that in the open field, up to 90% of the water is lost due to evaporation or to seeping into the ground. We want to keep this water and then trap it into the soil in order to make it available for the plants when it's mostly needed, to counteract the evaporation and to also be nutrient for plants and for the soil. We do that using algae, and with algae we create this hydrogel that is able to retain water much more efficiently than the soil, and then it releases it to the roots when the soil becomes dry. And this hydrogel can retain up to 100 times its weight in water, and it is used at the transplantation phase when the plants are put into the soil. With our experiments, we could see that not only we could use less water for the crops that we tested, but we could also see an increase in the yield production, in the production yield for the plants, because of the biostimulant properties that this hydrogel has, because it's natural. We are obviously not the first ones that thought about that, but the majority of our competitors are made from fossil fuels, so polyacrylamides and polyacrylates, that are potentially toxic for the environment, and they are mostly used. Other competitors that are natural are unfortunately not as good as us in the crop yield increase or the water usage. We offer on our side also the possibility to be completely ecological and eco-friendly, biodegradable, and also the possibility to add micronutrients and microorganisms that are specific for the crops or the soil that we want to treat. Our first customers will be the small and medium farmers, with which we will validate the market to see also how they are received, and with which we also already collaborated with the POCs that we made this summer. And we did some calculations that, like sparing the water, like half of the water that they normally use, and spending around 300 euros of beetroots for a crop, for a hectare of tomatoes. Their revenues are increased because of the crop yield increase, and their profit per hectare is more than doubled, resulting in the end in a return of the investment or approximately 8 times. Our next step will be for sure like the big industrial farmers, which we will direct through the big distributors that will also target the small and medium farmers through the intermediaries. Our plan for the future is not to stop to the crops that we tested, but we have in mind to also see how our product works with flowers, cereals, trees, and all the crops that are actually needing water. Our idea is to have a first pre-production plant at the end of this year to start also selling to vegetable next year, and then to all the other crops that we are testing. Our market is huge, but as we were discussing before, like due to the distributors and so on, like we are targeting some of the areas of the world at the moment, and especially the ones in these areas that are more drought prone, of which we will envision that we will reach a sum of around 70 million. Our team is strong in the 3 areas that we need for this project, that are the lab, the business, and the field, and that's why we have 3 members. It's me, the biotechnologist and the inventor of the solution, Valerio, that is our business strategist with an MBA, and Paolo, that is our agronomist with a degree in plant sciences in Wageningen. In conclusion, our mission is to maintain and actually increase the food security that we have with a product that works and is natural and completely sensitive to the environment, with a team with expertise that can do that. So thank you for the attention.
And to round out our presentations today, please welcome Alessandro Pucciarelli, Head of Agronomic Products and R&D at X-Farm Technologies.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for inviting me here, together with X-Farm, of course. I'm Alessandro, and I'm Head of Agronomic Products and Research and Development in X-Farm, and also a co-founder. So X-Farm is an FMIS. So that's the problem. So from 6 to 10% of Europe in terms of agriculture so lacks of digitization. So this is a very, very big problem, especially if we consider that farmers are having very, very big challenges in terms of being more productive, also due to climate change. So X-Farm has the mission of driving the transformation of agriculture, helping millions of farmers. How we want to do that? We do that with an application. Of course, we have a mobile application, but also a web application. But consider that 90% of the farmers and supply chain that use the platform use the mobile application. So we have different modules. We have the sustainability, the agronomic PSS. We have the connection with machinery, which is particularly important also at the end of the season to understand the emission specifically for the food chains. But then also we have a livestock session together with the management and bureaucracy. So we help farmers being more sustainable, but also not being tackled by too much bureaucracy. Why the farmer use X-Farm? These are just some numbers of the results that we have achieved in terms of reduction of chemicals, irrigation, and fertilizer, mostly thanks to the DSS that we have into the platform. So where are we helping farmers is with algorithms and proprietary technology like machine learning that helps them understand where they have to treat against, for example, leaf blight or something like that, rather than understanding where they have to put water into the field just because it's needed, not because they have calendar irrigation or something like that. Together with vision algorithms that helps them tackle pests like insects, and also disease recognition that they're able to identify directly from the app. We also believe that we are not just an FMIS, but we want to be an ecosystem. So what does it mean? It means that we are now integrating a lot of different sensors. So now machines, we can consider machines as being the biggest sensors that are in the field. So it means that if you have a tractor, by being able to receive the telemetry of the tractor, you will also be able to understand the emission, okay, that you're having at the end of the season. So for Barilla, for example, which is one of our clients, it's particularly important to understand which are the emissions of their supply chain. So if you start digitizing from the very bottom, so start from the farmer, so then you will have an aggregate number in terms of emission, and for Barilla, Kraft clients, and other clients like that, it's particularly important. What's our business model? I mean, our business model is twofold. So we're not just targeting farmers, of course, with a model which is premium. So 20 features that we have into the app is completely free. But then, of course, if they want to add some kind of sensor, some kind of module, we have a payment subscription to that. But then we also have corporate solution like Barilla, Kraft, Bungie, Viteva that wants to understand the emission and wants to do with us like path in terms of regenerative agriculture, for example, rather than sustainability. So for them, it's particularly important to understand how their food chain is meeting in order for them to reduce and then pay less at the end of the year in terms of carbon management. This is just, let's say, some numbers in terms of user and field surface that we cover. So we cover at the moment almost 7 million hectares divided into the country that you see on the right. And I'm particularly happy also to share that 2 days ago we closed our Series C rounding fund of 38 million that will help us also to explore new markets like Brazil. We already are in Brazil with Bungie, but we want to be more in Brazil and also other countries like China and Turkey. Last but not least, this is something that we've been working on with Zurich since 2.5 years ago, which are parametric insurances. So this means that farmers can be helped by having an insurance directly into the app. So they don't have any kind of contact with insurance, and insurance is completely data-driven. So it means that we use not just our sensors, but also weather provider data in order for them to receive the reimbursement directly without having any kind of contact with insurance. So as soon as they have a problem, they will start receiving the money directly into their bank account. Thank you very much.
And to all of our presenters. As I mentioned, we welcome you to learn more about these innovations at the exhibition and reception that will follow today's event. And there will be a showcase of each of these 5 innovations, as well as an additional innovation from CGIAR's International Water Management Research Institute, who is unable to join us live today. These success stories lead us now into the second panel, which will highlight multilateral pathways to foster agri-food technology transfer. Moderating this panel will be Romano De Vivo, Senior Research Fellow in Food Systems at the Center for Corporate Responsibility and Sustainability, School of Management, Fribourg. So I welcome him to introduce our esteemed panelists. Thank you.
So the cocktail is very close, but the best news is that we have another panel of great leaders, and we are going to explore basically how multilateral partnerships and innovation hubs can drive technology transfer, innovation acceleration, can help mitigate risks and attract investments. I would like to invite our panelists. So we have Biagio Di Terlizzi, Deputy Director CM Bari, Seth Charles Mekisi, Managing Director of Shamba Box Tanzania, Gladys Morales, Global Head of Innovation at IFAD, Guido D'Urso, Professor at University of Naples, Federico II, Mohamed Vaghi, Agri-Food Project Officer at Prima Foundation in MENA region. So, leveraging the huge diversity of our panelists, we have thought about having two very simple questions. So the first one to really explore the technology transfer, and the second one to see how it's possible also to mitigate risks. So the first question is how can international cooperation and the multilateral partnership help facilitate technology transfer and attract investments in innovation, particularly in the global south?
Okay, good afternoon to all of you. First, allow me to thank the CGIAR and INCARDA and CEST for the invitation and organizing this successful event. As you already introduced me in the beginning, that I'm working at the Prima program, which is a partnership between the European Commission and the Mediterranean countries. So this is an example of the partnership and this multilateral cooperation between the two shores of the Mediterranean. So in order to understand first what different types of partnership that we are looking for, maybe we can take some steps back to the history to see the EU-Mediterranean collaboration. It starts first with bilateral, at the bilateral level first, between, like, for instance, signing an SMT, an agreement between the European Commission and some countries like Egypt, Jordan, and so on. Some countries from the southern part of the Mediterranean took further steps to be an associated country to the European Commission, like Tunisia, for instance, and on track, and this is a good news, Morocco and Egypt as well, taking longer steps and efforts to reach this association to the Commission, which will open a lot of opportunities and potentials to those countries. And talking about the multilateral, which is the topic of today, it's very important to have it in a structural way. Like, for instance, start with maybe some examples in the region, the Union for Mediterranean, which is a structured body based in Barcelona, and it is dealing with the trade collaboration between the two sides of the Mediterranean. Prima is another example for research and innovation partnership between 20 countries from Europe and the Mediterranean Arab states and others as well. There is as well the Interreg Med and Interreg Next Med as well, and as another example. We have maybe some challenges facing this multilateral collaboration at the regional level. We already heard from our distinguished guest in the first panel some of those challenges. One of them, which is very severe, especially at the southern part of the Mediterranean, which is the fragmentation of the ecosystem that we have. And another, let's say, effect of this fragmentation, which is the access of reliable information and data, because you cannot build this partnership if you cannot have real information about the weight of the problem that you have and what is, let's say, the potential that we have for this collaboration or international collaboration, that we have a lot of commonalities between the northern and southern part of the Mediterranean, like water scarcity, food insecurity, energy deficiency, and this highlight the importance of the changing the mindset of the policymakers and the decision makers in the region, because now you cannot address those challenges as silos or separately. And this is, I want to comment on what our dear speakers in the first panel mentioning about different technologies, emerging solutions and so on. But it's important to address those solutions from a nexus perspective, which is something very important. If you will develop something for instance, solving a problem on the farming level, it's important as well to consider its impact or other related aspects such as the energy, or would you pollute the water or not. So it is very important to address this from a holistic aspect, and this will convince the policymakers and the investors, and maybe we will come later to this about the investment and the financial support on the second round, to see the impact of such an investment and effort they are doing, because this would encourage them to take further steps.
Thanks, Mohamed. And Guido. Thanks, Romano, for the invitation. I think that if there's something really difficult, is to transfer innovation to farmers, wherever they are in the world. Agriculture is inherently a very traditional sector, where the farmers or the entrepreneurs think, and probably they are correct, to know their farm, their field better than anyone else. And so all the practices, the machinery, or whatever they do on their field is based on sometimes long-term family experience, know-how which has been developed through generation. So it's very difficult from a top-to-bottom approach, which is, we know is very bad, but what is happening nowadays. Transfer any type of innovation directly to the farmer, directly to this, without taking into account what is this farmer is really doing. And this is true wherever we go in the world. My experience spans from Europe to Australia to sub-Saharan Africa. It's always the same. So if you ask a farmer, do you want this innovation? So I show to my students sometimes a man carrying a carriage with the square wheels. And there is another one showing, look, there's a round one, you can go faster, it will be better. And the farmer says, no, sorry, I have no time. So that is the crucial point. So what I want to say about that innovation has to follow some pathways which are based, first of all, of understanding very precisely what we call user requirements. This is an abused term. Anna before was saying about that. We have to understand what he needs. So we need to talk with him, understand what are the needs, and there is no solution which is good for everybody. The product has to be tailored to the precise farmer's needs. And the second one is understanding that we cannot innovate directly from outside. So the role of partnership is crucial. So my experience as an academic working in developing countries has always been establishing a long-term partnership with the local entities. So talking with colleagues from local university. I had experience in northern Uganda. We have been forming PhD, young researcher, came to our place, take the doctoral degree, go back to the home, and we establish a long-term relationship. It takes years to do so. But when we go there, we are credible. And when we want to propose innovation, it's not ourselves doing that, but our local partner going to the community, talking to the villagers, and saying, look, we have this. So they feel it's something belonging to their own heritage. So that is a very difficult, very tiring job, very frustrating job. That is the only way to go. And I think that I'm very much in line with what Anna was saying before. So partnership, academic partnership is crucial, especially if we go peer-to-peer. So we do not go, and this is a very typical approach of, let's be a little bit, say, proud of my Italian partnership, my citizenship is that the approach we use when we go in this country as Italians is totally different from any other country. We have a peer-to-peer approach. We become, let's say, we are colleagues first of all. So we are not from the top. I'm the boss coming from high civilized country. We know in Italy we are not a very high civilized country, and so we understand better what are their needs. And this makes things much easier, and these are an added value of the way Italians do cooperation in developing countries. So partnership, user requirement, that's the way to go through.
Fantastic. Go ahead, please.
Thank you so much. And thank you for the invitation to CGIAR and in particular to Giampiero. I would like to start from the approach and the mindset. So I believe also that partnerships are a key factor in identifying and scaling up innovation. But I will go into the partnership model that IFAD is implementing together with partners such as CGIAR and the Innovation Lab of other IFIs later. I would like to focus now more on what are the steps that we follow in the problem formulation, and I think that that's a behavioral design approach to how we develop innovation initiatives. Problem formulation is key so that we ensure that the products and the initiatives that are being designed and developed really address the needs of the project participants. When I talk about project formulation, IFAD focuses on a participatory approach where establishing transparency and trust within communities is key. Part of this participatory approach involves also user centricity, where all innovation and technologies, because innovation is not only technologies, it's also new approaches, it's also new processes, new methodologies. Those initiatives need to be user-centric, and what I mean by user-centricity is ensuring that we are not going to the communities just to ask questions, but really giving communities a seat at the design tables, making sure that we are designing for and with project participants, with these small-scale farmers. The other thing that is crucial in our innovation approach is that the products, the initiatives are demand-driven. It's, working in silos never works. And ensuring that we are really making sure that those communities are participating, that they're the ones demanding these products, and that they're the ones posing the problems and formulating the problems with us is quite relevant. And the last point in the approach is, of course, impact-driven approaches. So ensuring that we have a systematic approach to measuring, to the collection of data, ensuring the quality of data, and ensuring also that we are continuously measuring in a systematic way the results and the impact that is deriving from our innovation initiatives. Very quickly, 3 examples where IFAD is working through our climate grants. The Great Green Wall Initiative, where we are collaborating with partnerships in the identification of best practices. And it's not only best practices, it's also, we talk a lot about knowledge sharing, but when you are in that context and you want to really have a community approach and a participatory approach, what we have noticed is that knowledge sharing is not systematic. And if we don't have systematization of knowledge sharing for innovation, what you risk doing is replicating efforts that are already taking place in other areas of the world and not learning from each other, which just creates useless replication. So ensuring that we are implementing those best practices, and also ensuring the adoption of best practices. How do we do that? Through the Moonshots for Development Partnership Alliance that we have with the Innovation Labs, with the European Space Agency, CGIAR, and other partners from the private sector. We have developed an innovation model in the last 2 years, and that innovation model helps us to better address risk management, procurement issues, and intellectual property rights challenges that we might have engaging with the private sector. So it's really, really important that we organize, again, measuring continuously and systematically, but also a stage gate approach where we are doing checks and balances at the end of each of those stages to ensure that we continue financing those innovations that work, and we pull the plug for those innovations that are not working early enough so that our funding, our resources are not wasted. So that's the Great Green Wall Initiative, and that's something that we are supporting through innovation challenges of the GEF7 financing. And then for GEF8, we are supporting the Food Systems Integrated Program through also the establishment of innovation hubs in 32 countries. And more recently, going back to problem formulation, for those of you that are familiar with the new European Union deforestation regulation, this is a big problem for small-scale farmers. It's a great opportunity for the world so that we can better monitor deforestation, but it is indeed a problem because there is no operational solution at the moment that can help us with this issue. So we're working again with the European Space Agency and with other partners, ensuring that we develop an operational solution. So this is a research and development project. And I would like to talk later to you because I'll be talking later about a blockchain platform that is trying to bring this operational solution to reality.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Seth Charles. I am the managing director of Shamba Box from Tanzania. In fact, Tanzania is in the Eastern Africa. And so with Shamba Box, we are also working with entrepreneurs and innovators who are offering solutions to food systems, but also agricultural value chain. And at the beginning, we came to realize that there are almost 5 key challenges facing the food systems as well as the agricultural value chain. One is productivity and access to market for smaller farmers. 2, the issue of post-harvest handling. 3, the issue of food security in our region. 4, the issue of climate change, which is very critical as we speak. But again, the last thing was health and nutrition, because it is not about producing food. It is about producing food with nutrients. And so, to address these challenges or to provide solutions to these 5 key areas, we came to realize and believe that it is very possible to address these challenges if we give space to entrepreneurs and innovators, because they have the potential to apply both entrepreneurship skills, but again, they can also come up with innovations and technologies that can address the challenges. So to respond to the question about the importance of having international corporations, I'll just give you an example of one of the projects we have worked on. Back in 2020, we had this project called Agrifood Business Incubator, and we were able to engage the World Food Program. So they supported the project in 2 ways. One, technically, in terms of providing us with expertise and trainers to our participants to the program. We had like 55 entrepreneurs from different parts of the countries, and most of them, they came up with their ideas and solutions to, technological solutions and climate tech solutions to address various issues related to food systems. But again, in our country or in our region, it's not very easy to access expertise in those key areas. So through World Food Program, we were able to access expertise from their network and from different parts of the world, and they were very helpful to our participants. But again, we also received a fund to facilitate the program from World Food Program. And lastly, we had a pitch competition where we selected about 5 entrepreneurs and innovators. And of course, again, World Food Program supported these entrepreneurs with seed funding, $2,000 USD to each startup. And so, with that said, we strongly believe at Shamba Box that international cooperations and engagements are very important as we want to transform food systems. But again, if we want to integrate innovations and technologies in the process.
Thanks, Seth. Yeah, please.
Well, thank you very much, and thank you to Giampiero for invite. I'm coming from CIAR, which is an institute that has a mandate of training, and we do cooperation. But we do cooperation because we let the people that were training in Bari to develop research. Many times you mentioned about research, but we are promoting a dialogue and making joint research south to south, linking the universities that are present in the country that attend our courses. And here we heard from Mohammed the role of Prima, and Prima is really linking and is offering us this network. The research are for us the basis to identify needs in the area. The needs in the area means to look for a solution, and looking for a solution with multi-actors. The multilateralism is done also by multi-actors. And to strengthen this action, as the Institute, we are promoting the training for incubators managers, or managers that can support the innovation support organization. And at the end of November, we will have an innovation week where we will collect 140 startups to working together, startups that are made in the last few years. And they can they can really start a dialogue with some of Italian companies, which at the moment they are accompanying more or less 80 different Italian companies, that they can check how they grow in their country, but also how can interact with the other new companies. And this is how we promote. But sometimes this is perhaps a dialogue among few of them. But what we are trying to identify and to make available in certain area is to work as a district. There is an experience that we are trying to develop in Tunisia, how to make an organic district involving not only farmers, but all people all those companies that they can make even services, but also involving like a school or like also the other university or canteen or military canteen, to see how they can intervene in a context of a district. But this is something that really, to start this kind of innovation, we need really a strong opportunity from the government to support this idea, which is not really something that easily it will identify, but is an interest, because developing a district, you can have a chance to link together farmers, but also someone that can valorize what the farmer produce, but also and crafts, improving the logistic and so on. With this approach, which is just limited to Tunisia, we are also trying to see something which is wider, a kind of regional areas where to promote neglected, underutilized crops. This is for the whole Sahel, because crops to link with healthy food, which is not only to produce a food, but to produce something which is healthy. And the idea to see how to link university to make a large partnership, with also the Ministry of Agriculture and also with the Association of Civil Society in order to have a kind of rehabilitation of a value chain. This is an approach, just to say that we start with the student or fellow that are attending our activity, then they go back to their country and then see how to make more complex the interaction and to support the territories at the local level for a better life, because they have their knowledge and we have to save their knowledge.
Thanks a lot, Biagio, and I've heard a lot of great things. I mean, just starting from this very last concept of district, but even before we were talking about innovation ecosystem that relies on information, on data, on expertise, on international cooperation. But it's also important to formulate the problems in the right way, to investigate the needs, to make sure that there is a systematic impact that is really focused on outcomes. So there is really the importance to rely on an innovation model that puts together all the different stakeholders. And maybe just to refer to something that I found extremely important that Gladys said about deforestation, that looks also at some of the critical issues of specific value chains. Because if all the smallholders need to dry their crops before sending them out, they will all rely on deforestation to do it because they need energy. And clearly, I mean, if we don't address also these issues, we will not be able to develop that innovative ecosystem. I look around, is there any really very urgent reaction to this first part of the panel? Otherwise, we move to the second part and we will be even closer to drinks. I think the second option is the good one. So we need also to investigate risks. So in your approach, have you experienced models that are really able to reduce risk and encourage investments? So what is making, particularly financial stakeholders, but all the stakeholders that are needed in these multi-stakeholder platforms, more, able to sleep at night, that are not making the wrong investment? So is there a recipe, or is there something from your experience that can be shared with this fantastic public?
Yeah, thanks a lot for this very interesting question. First of all, let's agree that there is no single model that can be adapted for all the needs of different countries, different stakeholders. Second, maybe I can maybe mention three, let's say, common elements or essential elements that has to exist in any model, which is vary from, let's say, very soft or light models, such as maybe joint goals or agreements or bilateral collaboration for education or training and so on, until you reach more structured model of international cooperation, such as UFM, BRIMA, NextMed, and the others. Maybe the first one is the diversity of the of everything, of the stakeholders engaged in this model, that you put people at the center of those models, the diversity on the financial resources and the financial schema that you will apply, starting from the blending funding, impact investment, risk sharing, tax exemptions, whatever incentives you would give to especially the private sector to be engaged actively, especially if we know that based on the UNESCO statistics that our region is one of the lowest in the world, all over the world, with the private sector investing in the research and innovation in the South. I'm talking about the South for sure, not at Europe scale. The second point, which is already Gladys mentioned about the multi-actor or the multi-actor approach, that nobody left behind. You have to consider the two ways. It should be like top down and bottom up at the same time, because at the end you need to fulfill the needs of the people on ground, like the small farmers, the youth, the women, and so on. At the same time, you need to respect as well the demands from the funding agencies or from the investors or from the business angels, venture capital, whatever. The other point, and this is the big difference between North-South and South-South cooperation, as already mentioned in the first session by Dr. Sharif, why we don't have the South-South cooperation yet. No, it will exist, and there are several trials, but unfortunately they fail to sustain, and this is the problem. Why? Maybe because we have the lack of the interest after a certain period, we have problem on the governance or the management structure of this South-South cooperation, but maybe hopefully in the future we will have more successful and sustainable, and this is very important, model of this cooperation, because it's important to be real and active and sustained. Thank you.
I probably mention two keywords. The first one would be capacity building. So whatever innovation you want to introduce, you need to train local people in using that, understanding what are all the implications, limitations, and so on. So this is part of, I believe, any type of investment should always include something like that. Something we understood many years ago when we were creating great infrastructure that were never finished or were never operating properly because of the lack of local capacities. So that's the first. And second keyword is long-term sustainability of any type of technology. We have to look a little bit ahead, just not selling the products and then escaping without taking care of all the implications about what will be the usage of this innovation in 10 years from now. So is it sustainable from many different aspects? Operation and maintenance cost, spare parts, or whatever it is. I mean, there are all aspects which are the main reason for failure of innovation in the global south.
Thank you so much for the question. I think it's very, very, very relevant. I would like to focus this on some key aspects of the new partnership model that we're developing within the Munches for Development Alliance, which is drastically based on blended finance. Why blended finance? Because if we continue to do parallel financing, we're going to continue somehow to support the silo system, and we're going to continue to support innovation models that are not integrated. So when I talk about blended finance, it's not only the ambition to develop programs together and to design them together, but actually to do resource mobilization together and to create financing mechanisms that are bringing those multi-stakeholders with a vested interest in the initiatives that we all design, and with the project participants being an integral part of the design of those initiatives. Vested interest is key for these to also achieve sustainability and scalability. So those factors are really important, and that's the model that we aim to implement through the Munches for Development Alliance, where we have the World Bank, the Asian Development Bank, the Inter-American Development Bank, IFAD, CGIAR, the European Space Agency, and the private sector working together towards this goal. In this innovation model, I agree that you cannot. It's not a cookie cutter, so it has to be personalized, and it has to be fit for purpose. But key factors in the innovation model that we are delivering through the Munches for Development Alliance is this blended finance model that focuses on three components, which are, of course, behavioral design is a key element to ensure that the products take into consideration human behavior, but also financing alone doesn't solve all the problems. We do need to have capacity building, and we need to offer skills development programs. And in those skill development programs, we need to ensure that we are accompanying the startups and the teams with fit-for-purpose coach, so that and also again measuring the results that they're achieving, and ensuring that we scale up the innovations that prove effectiveness and pull the plug from those that are not delivering results. So that, again, that innovation model has to have those three components. That's in terms of partnerships. The key element and the vision for the future that I think we all collectively need to address and invest on is, without a doubt, for risk management and to ensure scalability, are digital public infrastructures and digital public goods. Support to investments in open source, open data, and ensuring that we work with governments, with research institutions, with the private sector to ensure that we're investing in digital public infrastructures that make accessible and affordable emerging technologies to small-scale farmers is fundamental. On this, IFAD and the Inter-American Development Bank are developing a digital public infrastructure that actually was developed in the Global South by blockchain developers in Uruguay, hugely successful. In 2 years, they have more than 9 million people that are already using this platform. The platform is not, and this is interesting, when we talk about the business model, someone said, let's not focus on the product development, let's focus more on the business model. The ecosystem development approach, where you look at all the suppliers and all the interactions that a farmer has throughout the day, and you work with all of them to create an ecosystem that will support him or her in building resilience and having market access. So for that, we're not developing a blockchain solution. AgroWeb3 is a platform that is actually a protocol for blockchain. And what it does is that it develops an incentive scheme for the private sector to be interested actually in developing solutions for small-scale farmers by reducing the cost, operational and transactional costs of blockchain solutions, and providing market access to these farmers so that they build resilience and they can increase their income.
Wow, thank you. First, I must agree that we need financial models that not only reduce risk, but again, they are also supporting scalability and sustainability. And I want to be very brief. I totally agree. From where I come from and my experience, I totally agree with the blended financing, as in having both grants as well as investment capitals. It's very important, but also the public-private partnership is very important. From my experience and where I come from, most of the governments from the global south, they are responsible with policy reforms, developing infrastructures, which is very important. And again, the other side of investment that should remain to private sector. I would say crowdfunding, but again, it's a bit tricky in most countries where I come. I mean, countries like where I come from. So maybe in the future we can also think of having those kind of crowdfunding.
Thanks, Seth. Yeah. Okay, they are talking about innovation, ecosystem innovation. We have two experiences. One has been already mentioned regarding the farmer markets, because we are trying to make a network of farmer market in several countries in Africa, but what they ask the farmers that really they cannot afford, they cannot get any support from the local bank. The question has been mentioned, how to reduce the guarantee which is requested to the really small farm, because farmer market is a mechanism that can add value to their production, but then needs also some small technology that sometimes they cannot afford and they have to access to the bank. Now, if there is any chance, consider that there are institutions here, there are financial institutions, that we can really reduce what is demanded them as a guarantee, then we can develop. About the ecosystem, innovative ecosystem, we have just one experience, which is in the north part of Syria, where there is a, say, make freedom from the ISIS. And over there, we are working since 2014 with the community, the local council. The local council, they decide together how much they can say they can spend in getting the inputs. Means that they can pay some of the inputs, which is the remaining quota is paid by the donor or by the program. Why they commute? They decide themselves 10% or 20% will be covered by the because they are well interested, they are still interested to make a local market, to make a local economy. And since 2014, we are over there from Idlib to Deir ez-Zor, where we do this activity, which is an economic system which has been made and set up by the local council, by the local community.
Fantastic. That's a great example to close this panel. I just wanted to read some of the words that I was noting down. So clearly multi-stakeholders, but capacity building, long-term horizon, blended finance, but with a vested interest, digital, de-risking, and if I may add, probably we are talking about a convergence of all these elements together. So we cannot really afford missing any of the elements. So capacity building practices, technologies, including digital finance, all together in order to make sure that we are really successful. Please join me in thanking this fantastic panel.
Thank you again, Romano. Thank you, panelists, for your expertise and contributions. So as we near the end of today's formal discussions, we hope to recall some of the insights shared, proposing from them actionable strategies for the leading organizations represented here to put these ideals of de-risking innovation through multilateralism to work. So I first welcome Gungu Nduva, Director of Food Security for the Ministry of Agriculture for the United Republic of Tanzania. Welcome for your remarks.
Good afternoon, everyone. Sometimes it is challenging when you speak last in a long scientific event like this, but I'll try to be brief. Yeah, my name is Gungu Mibavu. I'm here on behalf of the Permanent Secretary, Minister of Agriculture, Tanzania, Mr. Gerald Geoffrey Mweli, who was supposed to be here, but he has another side event, attending with the other ministers and senior officials from the SADC countries. So he sent me to address this gathering. So it is with great honor that I stand before you today to close this important event, navigating risk and reward in agri-food techno innovation and the power of materialism. On behalf of the Permanent Secretary, Minister of Agriculture, United Republic of Tanzania, I'm grateful for the opportunity to engage in such critical discussion with all of you. Over the past few hours, we have explored the pivotal role of agri-food technology in addressing some of the most pressing challenges our world faces today. From food insecurity to climate change, we have discussed how materialism and international cooperation can mitigate risk associated with these innovations, allowing us to harness their full potential for sustainable agriculture development. Our discussion, if I can go quickly, have highlighted several key themes. Collaboration is key. We have seen that by forging partnership across borders and sectors, we can pool our resources, share technology, and create synergies that enhance our collective capacity to innovate. In Tanzania, if I can make some example, we recognize the value of partnership with both international organizations and the private sector in driving forward our agriculture development agenda. Mitigating risks through innovation hubs was also featuring very well. The case studies shared during our session have demonstrated the effectiveness of innovation hubs in fostering local talent, promoting technology transfer and enabling youth entrepreneurship. We must continue to support and establish these hubs in the Global South, ensuring they are equipped to develop solutions that are inter-context specific and adaptable to local needs. Another area that featured well is innovative funding models. We have learned that new funding models can significantly reduce financial risk for investors while enabling startups to scale. The example presented today inspires us to rethink our funding strategies. In Tanzania, for example, we are prioritizing blended finance and public-private partnership that can empower our young agri-entrepreneurs. I would like to take this opportunity to congratulate CGIAR Accelerate for Impact Platform for the commendable efforts in collaborating with Shamba Box from Tanzania to launch the project. This initiative is a significant step towards fostering local innovation and empowering our agribusiness. By harnessing the creativity and potential of our youth, we can drive meaningful change in our agriculture sector. As we conclude this event, I urge all of us to take actionable reflection from our discussion back to our respective institutions, commit to collaboration. Let us foster an environment where government, international organizations, and the private sector can work hand in hand. Together, we can de-risk agri-food innovation and create sustainable solutions that benefit all. To empower youth, our youth hold the key to the future of agriculture. We must prioritize their engagement, providing them with the resources and opportunity they need to become the leaders of tomorrow. For example, in Tanzania, we are implementing a flagship program known as Building a Better Tomorrow program. This is a youth initiative for agribusiness, which aims to enable youth get livelihood in agriculture by allocating land with irrigation infrastructure, supporting them with inputs, and allocate buyers as off-takers for their product. We also encourage to invest in research and development. It is crucial to integrate research into our markets. By aligning our agriculture research with the market demands, we can accelerate the demand of solutions that address the real challenge faced by farmers, such as good seeds and others. We are also in a position to advocate for policy change. We need policies that support innovation and attract investment in agri-food technology, such as PPP policies, and by working together, we can ensure that our regulatory framework are conducive to growth and sustainability. In concluding, I would like to express my gratitude to CGIAR for hosting this event and for inviting me to contribute to this crucial conversation. Let us move forward with renewed energy and commitment to tackle the challenge we face in agriculture. Thank you for your attention and look forward to continue our collaboration beyond these events. Safe travel.
Thank you, Director, for your contribution. I now introduce Annette Schneegens, Deputy Permanent Representative of the European Union to the United Nations organizations in Rome. Welcome.
So it was hard to start the final panel. It's even harder to sort of close the final panel. Actually, I had in mind to say some things like off script. I thought I would bring some new things, but in fact, discussions have been so rich that whatever I had, my 3 points, they have all been addressed. So what I will just do is to just basically pull out 3 main messages that were already said that I found particularly important to take forward in our multilateral work. So the first point is, this has been said once, again and again, is if you've seen technologies are not neutral. They cannot be applied in the same way globally. They are totally need to be sort of translated into the local context, take into account the characteristics of farming systems, cultures, the territory, and so on. We've heard of this, I think, a lot. So in other words, they cannot be just transferred, they need to be co-created. And I was really happy to hear many times here the word multi-actor approach, co-creation, participatory research. This is for me very much the basis of where innovation starts. So, and this also was a comment when, I think it's still on the slide somewhere, that we talk about knowledge transfer. I think we should really share now this kind of understanding to just talk more about knowledge exchange. We all require the various types of knowledge. So this leads me to the second point, that was also raised. It's that to make this co-creation happen, it's not so trivial. It sounds just good to say we need to bring farmers together as researchers, the business, the public sector. But we've seen that the traditional way of having, for example, demonstration farms, or having scientists that go out and talk to farmers, it doesn't work so well. We have, in the EU, we are testing at large scale, actually, a concept of lighthouses, living labs. This is a new mechanism, not new, but in that size, quite new, where we really bring together the various actors and the users of solutions to be tested. And one example is a new mission on soils, on soil health, where the main objective is to create 100 living labs and lighthouses, some of them being now set up in Africa, also I think in cooperation with Bill and Melinda Gates on exchanging our experiences. And this kind of model, I think, is really worthwhile testing more systematically between the various donors. We're going to hopefully also see this with IFAT and FAO, how we can scale up more systemically, or with PRIMA, many people mentioned PRIMA, how we can scale up the living lab approach. So the third point, last one, is I think we all agreed, or speakers agreed, that organizational and social innovation needs to sort of go alongside technological innovations so that the investments, all the time needed, the resources can really have impact. And this includes information, training, and skills. So we have a package of issues, the co-creation, the social innovation, and only then, I think, we can have more impact when we talk about solutions, in particular technological ones. Now, since I'm here representing the EU, let me just say that all these elements are part of the EU strategy for agricultural research and innovation. It's very much built around these elements. So, the main message from today is to make ideas, investments, and so on board. We need this ecosystem. Dario was mentioning, calling it, I think, ecosystem support organizations as being part of that. And so what can we do in a multilateral context? This is something that I think we need to pull out more clearly. There's no single and easy solution, but what institutions like CGIAR, the Alliance, all the UN-based agencies here in Rome, we can create a shared understanding of what is needed locally. So the breadth of needs, the breadth of solutions. That kind of, we think we need to really have that kind of shared understanding to then create the public partnerships and pool together resources. I give an example. In the EU, we have developed 4 areas on agroecology, on digital, now we're in animal welfare, roadmaps where member states put together funding in a coordinated way. We're extending this to associated countries as well, and partnering with third countries. So we're putting our resources based on a common roadmap, taking into account, of course, very, very local needs that we cannot just transfer from one place to another. And finally, I'm checking who said this. I think Sheriff recalled that only 1%, for example, of climate finance reaches the small-scale food producers. So we don't need to do just the right thing. We need to target much better our interventions to whom to reach. I think IFAT also is very, very conscious about the targeting approach. this is something that we need to look at much more detail in the UN-based environment. And I think that so, instead of just having a major solutions and conclusions, that we take these various messages that have come across today, that we repeat them in all the various settings that we have, being it now at FAO or being out the COPs. We really need to bang on this, and I think we are not so far away from, let's say, getting together and putting our resources, public, private, in much more efficient ways. With this, I think Giampiero would like to close. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your contributions. And now to pass on to Giampiero Menza, Senior Manager of Partnerships and Innovative Finance at the Alliance of Bioversity International in Seattle.
Thank you very much. My 20 minutes statement here. No, I'm joking. I'm gonna just take less than 1 minute to deliver 3 important messages. So, first of all, thank you all for coming here today. This is our A4IP Flagship event, and we brought together a number of our partners that have been collaborating with us in the last 3 years in all our activities. So for us, it's very important that you are here listening and celebrating with all of us. So this is something very important and for the important messages that our panelists and people have delivered today. So we are acting as enablers, catalysts, let's say. You know, we are not pretending to rewrite something new, but for us it's like taking best practices and support our innovators to develop and deploy solutions that can actually be uptaken by smallholder farmers and value chain players. So this last point is because I wanted to take also the honor to introduce Javier Mateo Vega, who is our global director, and I need to spend just, I would like to spend hours to actually explain how he did, to support the CGIAR Accelerate for Impact platform, because 3.5 years ago when we actually conceived this project, he has been, there supporting and brainstorming with us and challenging us, and it's unfortunate that he's now leaving, now thinking at something, his next step in his career. So I wanted to thank you, Javier, for all your support, of course, the support of DG Restrepo and all the SMT, but yours in particular has been extremely important and key. So I would like to have the honor also to invite you to say a few words to the guests here today. Thanks.
Thanks so much, Giampiero, for those kind words. I do believe that I am, in effect, the only thing standing between you and food and drinks. So I will try to be very brief. I just landed a couple of hours ago before the event started from traveling from the East Coast of the US. And I was really worried, as I was telling Giampiero, that I'd be slumped in the back of the room snoring by this time due to acute jet lag. But I think this event has proven to be the perfect recipe for overcoming jet lag. Better than food, better than coffee. You guys are amazing. It's been fantastic to hear your very insightful and inspiring ideas. So let me start by thanking all of you for being a part of this dialogue on navigating risk and reward in agri-food-tech innovation. And I want to give a special thanks to Director Nuhu, as well as Representative Schneegans, and of course Giampiero for their summarizing the insights shared across the panels today. It's been very, very interesting. So we learned that emerging technologies, whether in data-driven platforms, AI, or gene editing, and many more can reshape agricultural productivity and resilience. And we recognize that the success of these innovations are premised on strong partnerships between researchers, governments, private sector, civil society, and of course, the communities that they serve. Multilateral efforts are essential for scaling these technologies in the global south, where smallholder farmers face the greatest barriers to adoption. So the risks of early agri-food-tech innovation can only be mitigated through collaboration that leverages joint resources, knowledge, and investment. And all of us present here today can work to implement these efforts across our organizations. I was really inspired by some of the innovations that we heard today, both developing from within CGIAR and of course from our partners now leveraging CGIAR's expertise and bringing these ideas to the next level. They serve as powerful reminders of what is possible when we align science and innovation with local needs and multilateral support. I won't speak a lot about Accelerate for Impact platform. This has truly been one of the most exciting spaces that I've been engaged with since I joined the Alliance of Bioversity-CIAT 7 years ago. And I would continue to encourage you to work with Giampiero and his team in this magnificent space. They're about to launch their new Research and Market Pathways RAMP program, which is tailoring support uniquely for CGIAR scientists to turn scientific discoveries into viable, market-ready solutions and ensure that our innovations are both demand-driven and sustainable beyond the conceptual phase. And so, wishing you the best of luck. I am transitioning now to CGIAR and the Alliance, and Giampiero will share later where I'm heading to, but I hope to see you all in DC at some point soon. So I think another key message of all that we've heard today is that no single initiative, organization, country, or sector can de-risk and deploy innovations alone. The strength of multilateralism lies in our ability to share risks, to scale rewards, and to ensure that innovations reach those who need them the most. And as we discussed today, through coordinated international action, we can drive investment into regions where it's most needed and promote the inclusive development of agricultural technologies. So thank you once again for your participation, and let's build on today's conversation at the networking reception that ensues. Look forward to speaking with all of you. Thank you so much for joining us. Enjoy the rest of the evening.
Thank you, Javier. And with that, we will say goodbye to our virtual audience as we close the broadcast. And we invite all of you to join us at our reception on floor 1, followed down to the garden. Thanks again from the Accelerate for Impact platform, the Alliance of Bioversity International and CIAT, and thanks to the Italian Ministry of Foreign Affairs and International Cooperation for their patronage of this event. We look forward to connecting with you down at the reception. Thanks.